Hey, welcome to the 10th celebrity typing live stream. And I can see we already have a super chat. Thank you very much, Isaac. I will begin by typing William Penn. Marvelous. So, for anyone else who's watching, just so you know, all you have to do to get me to type someone is make a super chat of at least 20 US dollars. You can do a super chat just by clicking at the bottom. There should be the ability to then do that super chat, and we'll just put the name of the person in that super chat. Please choose someone who is a public figure, someone for whom there's enough information available for me to then actually look at them and reach a typing on them. I should also say that if you ever want to do a super chat for a greater amount than $20, then if I'm moving on to the next person and I have multiple choices to choose from, I'll prioritize those with the higher donation before those of the lower donation. All right. Well, without further ado, let's dive into William Penn. Thank you very much, Isaac. So, William Penn is an English writer, theologian, religious thinker, and influential Quaker who founded the province of Pennsylvania. Okay, that makes sense. You know, I actually know a guy who is, I think, descended from William Penn. His name was Ed Penn. He was at my school. Uh, Quite a nice guy, actually. Got on quite well with him. But yeah. So I always associate Penn with positive feelings. So let me see. He's an advocate of democracy, religious freedom, of his amicable relations and successful treaties within the uh, Lenape native peoples who reside in present-day Pennsylvania prior to European colonization. Okay, right. What else can we see about him? He was early to support colonial unification, wrote an urge for a union of all the British colonies, what would later become the United States. Democratic principles that included in the West Jersey concessions set forth the Pennsylvania frame of government. Okay, so this is someone who is of the sort of mindset where he wants to create something. Oh, is my webcam frozen? My apologies. Let me sort that out immediately. Hang on just a second. What's wrong with my webcam? Any luck? Let me take it out and try again. Right. Nope, that's the wrong webcam. Hang on a second. Mm. Um, there we go. All right, I think I'm back. Okay, so as I was saying, William Penn, this is someone who was interested in creating a state, creating something which then reflects his ideals, his religious thinking, you could say. Um, that seems to be very clear here. He wants to set things up in some particular way. Um, is it doesn't seem to me that it's just a sort of personal enrichment land grab situation. He actually wants to create um, a state of certain values, specifically, as he said, democracy and religious freedom. Um, so deep religious conviction, numerous works. He exhorted believers to adhere to the spirit of primitive Christianity. I need to look into what exactly primitive Christianity is. Um, his book No Cross, No Crown, which he wrote while in jail. It's a classic Christian. Why was he? Oh, he's imprisoned in Tower London due to his faith. Fascinating. Well, let's look more into this. What is primitive Christianity or restorationism? The early beliefs and practices of followers of Jesus were either lost or adulterated after his death, and therefore required restoration, a view that often seeks to correct faults or deficiencies in other branches of Christianity. Well, that's also already a very sort of non-pragmatic thing. It's like, let's go to the source to understand what it really was about under the surface. Um, the motive is to tear down the walls of separation by a return to the practice of original, essential, and universal features of a Christian religion. Okay, so already that's sounding pretty introverted logic-ish. That there is a more original, deeper Christianity under which everything is now practiced today. This is not a pragmatic work with whatever Christianity you're used to. It's a sense of really go back to the source code of Christianity. Right, I see. And the key thing is this, he was willing to be imprisoned for this on multiple occasions. Um, you could say that Protestantism was in some way a restorationist approach. Um, Methodism, groups arising in the era of a second great. Was this a second great awakening? I guess it would have been given the time frame. Um, let's see. So he's been several times. Let's look at No Cross, No Crown. So the chief works of William Penn. Exalts the spirit of spiritual Christianity. It's under two parts. First, dealing with the importance of self-denial in the Christian life. The second, gathering a series of references to men through the ages who have written of the importance of self-denial, including heathens, professed Christians, and retired, aged, and dying men, being the last and serious reflections, which no ostentation or worldly interest could induce them. So his view of Christianity is intensely spiritual rather than formal, and then passing, he defends several practices typical of religious society of friends, including clothing which is not fashionable, speech which address royal and commoner alike in the second person singular, thee or thou. Well, okay, so very democratic, very much about people sort of on the same level as each other, and also this idea of self-denial, the act of letting go of the self as with altruistic abstinence, a willingness to forego personal pleasures, undergo personal trials in the pursuit of increased good of another. So this idea that it's not about selfishness, it's about anti-selfishness, it's about there's something more important than just yourself, which is everyone else, and that sort of collective. Um, so this is a guy who's very much about his principles, endorse a certain collective almost democratic, everyone on the same level way of thinking, wanted to get back to the source code. I see Inchon has said thinking LII. That is my impression at this moment in time. I want to look in deeper though, just to see if that lines up with other lenses for which we view him. So that's just view what he's written, what decisions he has, what we can infer from his decisions in terms of setting up a state. I mean, so values oriented. But what else can we see? So he grew up during the rule of Oliver Cromwell. Um, Let's see. Oh, lost his hair. Smallpox, goodness. Okay, educated at Chigwell. Was a young pen at 22. Running was his favorite sport. Ran more than 3 miles. Was home to the school. Running was actually not a sort of physical contact sport there. Um, More of an endurance sport. He's educated heavily on the classical authors. No novelties or conceited modern writers were allowed. That's not his choice, of course. Um, he developed his individuality and philosophy of life. He was not sympathetic with his father's martial view of the world, nor his mother's society-oriented sensibilities. I had no relations inclined to so solitary and spiritual way, and I was a child alone. A child was given to musing, occasionally feeling the divine presence. Um, right. Okay. So this is the thing. He was sort of detached from social relationships, despite the fact that he was very much about self-denial. And he did not relate to the martial view of his father. He was more, you could say, a bit more of a peacenik, perhaps. Um, that's already consistent with LII. From returning to, hang on, the undogmatic Christian humanist, sort of a tolerant, adapting view of religion, which appealed to Penn. Tolerant and adapting, yes. He felt uncomfortable instead with the sort of Catholic ritual. He found French manners far more refined than the coarse manners of his countrymen, but he didn't like the extravagant display of wealth and privilege he saw in the French. Again, he likes people sort of at the same level. He likes tolerance, openness, no one really above anyone else. I'm thinking this is a very clear sign of alpha values, I would say. He liked Catholic ritual and Notre Dame's beauty, but he also found it sort of uncomfortable, some sort of an austerity and lack of, I'm assuming, a lack of approachability and accessibility to it. Um, the undogmatic, tolerant, adapting view of religion. Never had any other religion in my life than what I felt. Um, by adapting his mental belief in free will, he felt unburdened of puritanical guilt and rigid beliefs and was inspired to search his own religious path. He was into his parents' mature, well-mannered, modish gentleman. Sam Pepys noted young Penn's vanity of the French, though the taste for fine clothes, and the rest of his life would pay somewhat more attention to his dress than most Quakers. Well, that I think fits in with the introverted sensation and extroverted ethics valuing of an LII, certainly. He great was his son, then had the practical sense and the ambition necessary to succeed as an aristocrat. He had a young Penn enroll in law school, but soon his studies were interrupted. He shadowed his father at work and joined him at sea. He functioned as an emissary, then returned to his law studies. He returned triumphantly, but London was in the grip of the Great Plague. He reflected on suffering and the deaths, the way humans react to the epidemic, gave us a deep sense of the vanity of this world, of the irreligiousness of the religions in it. These are Quakers on errands of mercy were arrested by police and demonized by religions, even accused of causing the plague. He actually became a soldier whilst managing the family land holdings, took part in suppressing a local Irish rebellion. He was proud of this, and he wore a suit of armor, the most authentic likeness. His first experience of warfare gave him the sudden idea of pursuing a military career. Okay, well, that's interesting. The fever of battle soon wore off. His father discouraged him. I could say nothing but advised his sobriety, which will youthful desires mayn't outrun your discretion. Religious conversion, despite the danger, began to attend Quaker meetings. He knew that the Quakers were already being oppressed for their activities, and he was arrested for attending Quaker meetings. He publicly declared himself a member and joined the crazy age of 22. So again, this sort of self-preservation was not really his his strong suit. Um, he was released from jail due to his father's rank. His father tried to reason with him, but to no avail. His father only appeared of his own position, but something better than a dangerous confrontation with the crown. In the end, young Penn was determined more determined than ever. He had no option but to order his son out of the house and to withhold his inheritance. He became homeless, lived with Quaker families. Goodness, the basic ceremony of Quakerism was silent worship in the meeting house conducted in the group. No ritual, no professional clergy. Many Quakers disavowed the concept of original sin. God's communication to each individual came indirectly. They directly, if so moved, they shared their revelations, thoughts, or opinions with a group. Found them all to sit well with his conscience and his heart. So, yeah, standard Quakerism, you could say. Everyone's on the same level, no one's above anyone else. When you feel the need to speak, you are in an open space to speak, essentially. And that God sort of communicates directly with all. You don't have to go through a priest. No, there's no hierarchy in Quakerism. Very sort of moderate, very sort of judicious, very sort of open-minded. Visited Germany, persecutions, published the first of many pamphlets, truth exalted to princes, priests, and people. He was a critic of all religious groups except Quakers, which he saw as the only true Christian group at that time in England. He banned the Catholic Church, the whore of Babylon, defied the Church of England and called the Puritans hypocrites and revelers in God. He lambasted all false prophets, tithe mongers, and opposers of perfection. He thought it a ridiculous, nonsensical. Pepys thought it a ridiculous, nonsensical book, but he was ashamed to read. He was imprisoned in the Tower of London. The real crime bill was blasphemy, assigned in a warrant by King Charles II. He was placed in solitary confinement in an unheated cell and threatened with life in sentence. He's accused of denying the Trinity. This is a misinterpretation. Goodness. What's this? So this, I think, starts to go into founding Pennsylvania. Okay, this is very important. So He appealed directly to the king and the duke, proposing a mass emigration of English Quakers. Some Quakers already moved to North America. Um, a group of prominent Quakers included Penn, purchased the colonial province of West Jersey, comprising the western half of present-day New Jersey. Promising New Jersey in place, he pressed the case to extend the Quaker religion from personal sympathy or political expediency. To Penn's surprise, the king granted an extraordinarily generous charter, which made Penn the world's largest private non-royal landowner, 45,000 square miles. Hang on, how is the king granting him this when he was in prison just before? The Duke and the King, in return for the Admiral's lifetime of service to the Crown, promised to protect young Penn and make him a royal councillor. He had a large fortune, but found himself in jail again for 6 months. This is the thing. Because the reason why the king supported Penn was because of his father's reputation, not because of Penn's reputation. Penn was doing almost all he could to ruin his reputation with the king, it seems, and had seemingly very little attention to his own wealth and self and again self-preservation. Um, so the king was very, very kind to him because of his father's memory, it appears. It was extraordinarily generous, it seems to me. But I think it was a way of also the King Charles II was getting all these troublesome Quakers to move away to what would become the United States, which is often what happened. A lot of all sort of troublesome people that the England didn't want, they all left to America and brought all their ways with them. I think there's a good book called Seed of Albion which talks about that. But anyway. It's probably a very good thing because the Quakers were perhaps have been historically the moderates in American politics. They've always been the ones sort of in the middle that decide things in the balance between the Bostonites and the Southern plantation owners. So you first call this area New Wales or then Sylvania. And King Charles changed to Pennsylvania in honor of the elder Penn. It wasn't named after Edward Penn. Sorry, William Penn. It was named after Admiral Penn. So I didn't actually know that. Chapter of America and while they negotiated Pennsylvania's first land purchase. It's interesting also that he didn't name it Pennsylvania, the king named it Pennsylvania. Proved himself an influential scholar and theoretician. He now had to demonstrate the practical skills of a real estate promoter, city planner, and governor for his holy experiment. Hang on, yeah. Where did it say he proved himself a theoretician? He knows who favored Penn's analytical formulations of Fox's simple precepts. Okay, I've missed something here. Penn in Germany, Penn in Ireland. Okay, the first theologian, fierce and legal defender of Quakerism, proved his written doctrine, established his public standing. Okay, I guess these are his writings, essentially. Okay, fine. Fine. It doesn't go into that much depth on it. So yeah, he founded Pennsylvania. He was definitely a scholar. He hoped it would be a profitable venture for himself and his family, but claimed that he would not exploit either the natives or the immigrants. I would not abuse his love, nor act unworthy as providence, and so defile what came to me clean. To that end, his land purchase from Lenape included latter parties retained right to traverse the sold lands for purposes of hunting, fishing, and gathering. So he did not want to oppress anyone. Oh, really, Isaac? Fascinating. Fair enough. Yeah, now I've been seeing a fascinating book. Though thoroughly oppressed, getting Quakers leave out England to make the dangerous journey to the New World as the first commercial challenge. To attract settlers in large numbers wrote a glowing prospectus considered honest and well researched for the time, promising religious freedom as well as material advantage. She marketed throughout Europe in various languages. In 6 months, he passed out 300,000 acres to over 250 prospective travelers, mostly rich London Quakers. He also attracted Huguenots, Mennonites, Amish, Catholics, Lutherans, and Jews, all the persecuted minorities, um, many of which are very good for getting an economy going. Um, quite smart. Then began establishing a legal framework for an ethical society with powers derived from the people, from open discourse, in much the same way as a Quaker meeting was run. Okay, so what we see here, he is very ideological, where said ideology is about openness, it's about tolerance, it's about having a gentle, judicious hand in things, where everyone's at the same level. So, yeah, again, I'm seeing nothing here to contradict an LII, an LII with a lot of money, specifically. The laws of behavior that he laid out were rather puritanical. Swearing, lying, and drunkenness were forbidden, as well as idle amusements such as stage plays, gambling, revels, masks, cockfighting, and bear baiting. So a little bit prudish here. Prisons would be progressive, attempting to correct through workshops rather than through hellish confinement. Also, a radical departure from the laws and lawmaking of European monarchs and elites. Over 20 drafts. He laboured to create his framework of government. Yes, Isaac, he was both zealot and without being intolerant. Exactly right. And plus he's got and you could think what other type could he be? Maybe an II. I'm not thinking II. This is someone who invests in the details of how the state also comes together. Um, he wanted to build an amendable constitution, which could then, well, an amendable one which could change over time. A written framework could evolve with the changing times. Stated governments like clocks go from the motion men give them. So, in this sense, it's not set in the stone, it's not finalized, which again very much leans more towards extroverted intuition than introverted intuition. Um, and yes, this idea of sort of building a state rather than necessarily some sort of kingdom in heaven. It's no, we need to create this good existence in the world around us, and to make that something which is localized and experienced and embodied. Which implicit to that is also the introverted sensation. Help with meaningful contribution to economic dissent and like new ideas and allow meaningful societal change without resorting to violent uprising revolution. Again, no violence. Does not want the violence. Essentially, he did want to become a soldier at one point. So yeah, it's I think that's some degree of idealism also drives that. Remarkably, though, the crown reserved the right to override any law it wished. His skillful stewardship did not provoke any government reaction while Penn remained in his province. Despite criticism by some Quaker friends, Penn was setting himself above them by taking this powerful position, and by his enemies who thought he was a fraud and falsest villain upon earth. He was ready to begin the holy experiment. And so he calls it the experiment. I don't think I would call it an experiment, more a revelation. Bidding goodbye to his wife and children, he reminded them to avoid pride, avarice, and luxury. I think he has to be LII. I'm not sure what else he could be. Goodness, he died penniless. What happened here? When he returned to England, why did he return to England? His wife did not enjoy life as a governor's wife and hostess, preferred the simple life she led in England. When new threats by France again put Penn's charter in jeopardy, Penn decided to return to England with his family. He returned and immediately became embroiled in financial and family troubles. His eldest son led a dissolute life. Um, he had hoped to have William succeed him in America. Now he could not even pay his son's debts. His own finances were in turmoil. He had sunk over 30,000 in America, received little back except for some bartered goods. He made many generous loans which he failed to press. Well, that's the lack of extroverted sensation, I would say. Um, his financial advisor cheated him out of thousands of pounds. Well, this is a typical story for LIIs, unfortunately. They often get cheated out of a lot of money. Similar thing, some difficulties happened with Nikola Tesla. Um, he sent William to America to manage affairs, but he's proved just as unreliable. He's been in England. There was considerable discussion about scrapping his constitution. In desperation, tried to sell Pennsylvania to the crown before Bridget Ford got wind of his plan, and by insisting that the crown uphold his civil liberties then achieved, he could not strike a deal. Took a case to court. Age 62, landed in debtor's prison. However, Russia's sympathy reduced his punishment to house arrest. So he's always survived on sympathy and the reputation of his own father. Um, Fortunately, his son got him into trouble too much, it appears. When weary of a politicking back in Pennsylvania and the restlessness with his governance, he implored him, Logan Paul, to not forsake his colony for fear that Pennsylvania might fall into the hands of an opportunist to undo all the good that had been accomplished. He died penniless and is buried in a grave next to his wife, Julielma. Goodness. Legacy. According to American historian Mary Maples Dunn, he liked money, and though he was certainly sincere about his ambitions for a holy experiment in Pennsylvania, he also expected to get rich. He was, however, extravagant, a bad manager and businessman, and not very astute in judging people and making appointments. He was gregarious, had many friends, and was good at developing the useful connections which protected him through many crises. But both marriages were happy, and he would describe himself as a family man, although public affairs took him away from home a great deal. And he was disappointed in those children whom he knew as adults. Um, yeah, could be extravagant, could be a bad manager and businessman. And he's extravagant despite being a Quaker, I should also say. Um, Not very astute in judging people making appointments. Yeah, it seems to me that LII makes the most sense. Could it be ILE? I don't think so. I think that the extrovert intuition is very much under the introverted logic from the sound of it. It's clear that it was all really about Quakerism. It's treated within Quakerism. Let's see what else we can find. Maybe we can find some quotes by him. By the way, for anyone who's watching, if anyone would like to make a super chat for me to type the next person, please feel free to do so. Remember, it's only $20 for me to do that. Let's look at his quotes. Right is right, even if everyone is against it, and wrong is wrong, even if everyone is for it. It's very LII. Men must be governed by God, or they'll be ruled by tyrants. Force may make hypocrites, but it can never make converts. He that lives, well, force may make hypocrites, but it can never make I think that Islam and Catholicism would disagree with that. Um, yeah, no, yeah, that's evidently not true. A lot of people have been converted by force over time. Um, Only trust thyself, and another shall not betray thee. Um, that was not true because he was betrayed. He that lives to live forever never fears dying. To be a man's own fool is bad enough, but the vain man is everybody's. Yes, is what the LI would want to believe. Correct. I think extroversion sensation as a vulnerable function makes a lot of sense. Knowledge is a treasure of a wise man. Let the people think they govern, and they will be governed. Less judgment than wit is more sail than ballast. Well, I think that fits into Alpha as well. Nothing does reason more right than the coolness of those that offer it, for truth often suffers more by the heat of its defenders than from the arguments of its opposers. Passion is the mob of the man that commits a riot upon his reason. Force may subdue, but love gains, and he that forgives first wins the laurel. He sounds very Jedi and uh, anti Sith in a way as well. Similar sorts of themes here. almost Yoda-like. A true friend freely, advises justly, um, assists readily, adventures boldly, takes all patiently, defends courageously, and continues a friend unchangeably. Lovely. Avoid popularity, has many snares and no real benefit. Um, yeah, I'm not thinking extroverted ethics as a mobilizing function makes much sense at all, really. Um, any more quotes about him? Let's see. Quotes about Penn. I fled to the land of Penn, for here fought I sympathy for the slave which would be found. Found it not. People were kind and hospitable, but slave had no place in their fort. Okay. Rather than the unchristian, more like nature of Christians whom he termed, not 17th century insult to be worse from the Turks. Simplest form of ending the war, but it starts an individual refusing to fight. Somebody must begin it. There are aspects of him which also feel almost like a Noam Chomsky as well, uh, or even sort of like a non-socialist version. There are similarities there. And the key thing is that he died penniless. He inherited a large amount of money and he died penniless. Um, oh, what is that? Donovan Granville? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, DJ Granville. $19.99. All right. That's Kevin O'Leary, a Shark Tank investor. All right, I'll have a look at him next. Yeah, just saying, as yeah, I think LAI. I'm not sure what else would make sense here. Um, let me see if I can quickly look at anything else just to see. There's something on YouTube, and then I'll stop and I'll move on to Kevin O'Leary. Right. Hmm. Oh, it's a 2-minute video.
William Penn was born in London on October 14th, 1644, to a prosperous English family. From his grammar school days, young Willie took a great interest in religion, but couldn't really find anything that fit him. From grammar school, he went to Oxford and entered in Christ Church College at the age of 15. While at Oxford, he went to hear Thomas Lowe, a Quaker, who had been preaching about the Society of Friends, a new church with new ideas. This had a dramatic impact on William, who took great interest in the new ideas that the Society of Friends brought to the table. But William was still a nonconformist, and he resented the strict discipline that had been inflicted upon him at Oxford. Eventually, he was expelled for, quote, rejecting the surplice and rioting in the quadrangle. Whatever the surplice means. In fact, come to think of it, I don't even know what a quadrangle is. Math is hard. Anyway, William's father was furious at him and sent him off to France in the hopes of refining him. Well, apparently it worked. William ended up then in Ireland at his family estates. While at Cork, Ireland, William Penn met once again Thomas Lowe. It was during one of his sermons that a passage from Scripture really spoke out to William. There is a faith which overcomes the world, and there is a faith which is overcome by the world. This was what William had been waiting for, a faith in God that is immutable and concrete. It is said that at that moment, William Penn was officially a Quaker. Soon after, he became active in the Quaker movement and befriended the founder of the church, George Fox, and even went as far as springing him from jail several times. Now, the term Quaker was actually developed because of one of Fox's arrests. When he was in court defending himself on a blasphemy charge, he said everyone should, quote, tremble at the word of God. so the term Quaker was coined. Originally, it was used as an insult, but the Quakers adopted the term in a we don't really care what you think kind of way.
Right. Okay, that's not entirely helpful. I think LI makes the most sense. Tim says, why not EII? There is something nearer to us in Scripture, to wit, the word in the heart from which all Scripture comes. I don't think that makes introverted ethics. I think it's a question here of, well, you could say that there's consulting one's own morals to some degree, that nearer to us is what is in our heart, what we feel is right. I don't think that does anything to overcome what seems to me to be a lifelong dedication to the proliferation of an ideology and the writing that Quakerism is the only true Christian faith and the going back to the roots of Christianity. Uh, and also the idea of them building a state with Quakerism inspiring the legal framework of how it operates and calling that an experiment. I don't think an EII would be driven to do that. If anything, I think an EII would be more driven by duty to the relationship with the father than anything else. And this is not the case when it comes to William Penn. I'm not sure he had a personal one-to-one faithfulness at all which drove him, except maybe a relationship with God. But even then, it seems to be far more about getting back to the source code, understanding the underlying truth, and promulgating that truth in a way which is still sort of open and very temperate and judicious. Um, so yeah, I don't think EII would be driven in the same way. If anything, I think the motivations are very much introverted logic and not introverted ethics. Sure, you can find a quote which suggests it in a way which could be interpreted as more introverted ethics loaded, but that doesn't then square with everything else we can see about this person. Yeah. Well, a lot of a lot of 18th century stuff was changed by eccentric people with significant positions. So much of scientific and intellectual discoveries were driven by aristocrats who had a lot of free time on their hands. In a way, you could say that, well, maybe we are deprived from not having as many aristocrats going into all sorts of scientific and philosophical pursuits, because that's sort of what the Enlightenment was driven by. All right, Kevin O'Leary. Let's look at Kevin O'Leary then. All right. So Kevin will probably have a very different person. But let's see. Also known as Mr. Wonderful, is a Canadian businessman, television personality, and actor. From 2004 to 2014, he appeared on various Canadian television shows, including the business news program The Lang and O'Leary Exchange, as well as the reality television shows Dragon's Den and Redemption Incorporated. Hosted Discovery Channel's Project Earth, has appeared on Shark Tank. Project Earth. Why did he host that? Co-founded SoftKey Software Products, technology company that sold software geared towards family education and entertainment. A major consolidator in the global educational software market. Okay, so it sounds to me he's a businessman, but he's also interested very much in educating people. He campaigned to be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. He dropped out in April 2017, one before the election, citing a lack of support in Quebec. In addition to his native Canadian citizenship, he also holds Irish and Emirati citizenship. Interesting. Born in Montreal. It's interesting, he didn't have much support in Quebec, despite having been born in Quebec. His parents divorced as a child. His mother married someone who worked with the UN's International Labour Organization. Obviously, a skilled investor. Okay. He had aspired to become a photographer, and the advice of his stepfather, who prompted the young Kevin to be more realistic with future career aspirations, he went to attend university instead, where he developed his interest in business and investing since his youth. He had honours bachelor's degree in environmental studies and psychology from the University of Waterloo. Hmm. For an internship. Hmm. But again, a brief career as a television producer. Softkey. After selling his SET share, so co-founded Special Event Television, an independent television production company producing original sports programming, such as the original Six Don shows, Grapevine and Bobby Orr and the Hockey Legends. Had limited success with minor television shows, soccer films, sports documentaries. So he is business oriented. He's also sort of entertainment and education oriented, it seems. Besides Softkey, he turned to using the proceeds that he gained from selling his SET share, was convincing his mum to lend 10,000 in seed capital to establish Softkey software products. Convinced printer manufacturers to bundle Softkey's program with their hardware. Products typically consist of software for home users, usually compilation discs, including various freeware, shareware games, packaging in dual case CD-ROMs. He experienced a loss of 105 million in stock. Also, Mattel had a let's see. Other ventures, let's see. Storage Now Holdings. Canadian developer of climate controlled storage facilities. A private equity firm. Investing in healthcare, industrial technology, business services, and software. He agreed to pay penalties to the Autorité des marchés financiers for violating certain technical provisions of the Securities Act. Not getting a very clear pattern at the moment. He launched an exchange traded fund. A value investor is a paradigm that involves buying securities that appear underpriced by some form of unfundamental analysis. He advises on personal finance. He advocates portfolio diversification, just that investors have their age as the percentage of bonds in their portfolios. So 30% in bonds and 70% in stocks for a 30-year-old investor, proportion of bonds and decreasing proportion of stocks as the investor ages. That's an interesting idea. In many occasions, that he won't invest in publicly traded stock, so it pays him a dividend. He also advises diversification in multiple industry sectors, or dedicating no more than 20% of one's financial portfolio concentrated in one sector. So he's very breadth oriented, it seems to me. And he says very bitty, lots of different things here. So most likely extroverted. But we'll have to see. Initially expressed skepticism about cryptocurrency, when Bitcoin as a digital game and useless currency. Let's say you want to buy a piece of Swiss real estate. Seller wants to guarantee the Bitcoin value comes back to US currency. You have to somehow hedge the risk of Bitcoin. That means it's not a real currency. That means the receiver is not willing to take the risk of the volatility it has. It's worthless. So he had made a 3 to 5% allocation to Bitcoin and become a strategic investor in the Vancouver-based decentralized finance platform, DeFi Ventures. Let's see, books, Cold Hard Truth, Business, Money, and Life. It's all cold hard truth. Goodness. Nothing particularly exciting. More cold and hard and accurate, I guess. He looked at persona as a blunt, abrasive investor that at one point told a contestant to start crying. Money doesn't care. Your tears don't add any value. He was encouraged by Stuart Coates, who occasionally asked Lou to be more evil during the first 2 seasons. Lang and Leary exchange. Oh, also worked for the Discovery Channel's Discovery Project Earth, a show that explores innovative ways to reverse climate change. Okay, again, appearing with journalist Amanda Lang. Uh, During a segment of the Lang and Leary exchange, he criticized Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Chris Hedges, sounding like a left wing nut bar. Said after it would be the last time it would appear on the show, and compared CBC to Fox News. They found O'Leary's behavior to be a violation of the public broadcaster's journalistic standards. Langley Exchange remarked, "It's fantastic, and this is a great thing because it inspires everybody, gets the motivation to look up to the 1% and say, I want to become one of those people. We're going to fight hard to get up to the top. This is fantastic news, and of course, I applaud all. Can be wrong with this. I said, but capitalism, don't tell me that you want to redistribute wealth again. That's never going to happen. Redistribution of wealth doesn't work. We tried it in the Soviet Union, North Korea. Would you like to live there?" They later clarified this statement. Let's see. No, I don't think poverty is fantastic. I don't think income disparity is fantastic. What I think is how successful capitalism has been over the last 100 years, reducing poverty and reducing income disparity. In the last 30 years, the number of people living on this globe in extreme poverty has been reduced from 40% down to 70%. And I want you to thank capitalism for that because that's how it happened. There's quite a lot of extroverted logic in there. It's not going down to some basic principle. It's saying, look, this has worked over time. So this is why I think the way that I think. I got involved in politics, in the Conservative Party leadership race. It's following Stephen Harper's research not too long ago. He was called by Maxime Bernier as a tourist for wanting to be prime minister without being able to speak French. So he wanted. I see. So this is the thing. He was born in Quebec. He never learned how to speak French, and then he's criticised for that very reason. This is not someone who's very populist. I imagine someone who's more extroverted, ethics oriented would try to speak French before trying to represent the people of Quebec. So it strikes me that the people of Quebec were almost an inconvenience to him as in a way. On 1st of February 2017, he posted a video of himself shooting in the Miami gun range. It was removed from Facebook out of respect for the funeral of 3 victims of the Quebec City mosque shooting on that day. It was also revealed that he was in New York promoting one of his business ventures when this occurred. He apologized for the timing of his post. Okay. Not really that, what can you do about that? He described hypothetical trade negotiations between Trudeau and Trump as Godzilla versus Bambi. Criticized Kamala Harris. Okay, fine. We know he's on the right of politics. Fine. He opposes right to disconnect legislation, which gives employees the legal right not to respond to work-related communications outside of work hours. He's advocating employers not hiring people who participate in the pro-Palestinian protests, so these people are screwed. I'm getting the sense. I mean, I'm largely inclined to think just from reading this, he's probably an LIE. You know, entrepreneurial, inclined to be quite blunt, even dismissive, sort of a Simon Cowell figure, but of course in business. Um, has political aspirations, clearly very ambitious, but kind of struggles with popular appeal, despite being somewhat of a celebrity figure. Successful growing business, it eats your time alive. Then later in the time, you can provide for your family things that many others can't have because you sacrifice. You ain't given the reward of freedom. That's a very LIE thing to say as well. Right. Let's see what else. Kevin O'Leary. Maybe there's something on YouTube. Almost certain there's something on YouTube what I'm talking about. Has his own YouTube channel. Oh, Reza Pahlavi. Yes, yes, yes. Brilliant suggestion, Claudia. Brilliant. we'll do that in just a bit. But hang on a second. Let's do this.
I have here the creator of Dubai Watch Week in Siddiqui. Now, she's legendary, but she's getting even bigger because this show is getting bigger. Let's go back in time and talk about the idea. Like, when did you come up with this thing?
We started in 2015.
Well, the watch world is moving to Dubai.
Experiences that we have been exposed to as retailers. You know, we used to go to the
Why is he interested in this?
people behind the brand to the watch collecting community in the UAE and show them why we're so passionate about watchmaking. Because if they don't see what's happening behind the scenes, they're never going
to sit down with Hind Siddiqui, the force behind Dubai Watch Week channel. It's the influential minds in modern horology. The share cross-share story has become one of the most important watch gatherings in the world, isn't itself? So about community education, who could directly you actually make the watches. But this was also written by ChatGPT, most likely.
He's known in the region, obviously, as one of the largest authorized dealers of many brands. I mean, anybody who watches knows that. But this is something different because when I look at it this year, it's massive. I mean, this is a complete change this year. It's a new location. All these booths are set up. Brands are doing huge things here. I mean, there's other watch shows around the world, but nothing quite like this. So what was the big change here? What happened?
when we
Why does he interview? I'm trying to think. Why does he interview people like this? Ultra in Dubai, Sotra's numbers. What John Mayer talking about playing the guitar. Nikki Glazer threatens to roast Kevin O'Leary. Sort of random stuff here. Cutting to in fact releases ranked from the best to the most controversial. If I call Bear in 4 seconds, was this?
Donald Trump posted, I absolutely love that Colbert got fired.
This is so random.
Then his ratings. Go yourself.
Well,
For inspiring.
Very simple said a word.
They say nice things about him or not. And should the president of the United States be picking and choosing people who should have jobs based on whether they say nice things about him or not?
No, but he got fired before Trump said a word. 46.2.
Actually, Trump called for his firing.
Very simple explanation.
Okay, let me respond to what you said. Trump called for his firing last fall, just to be clear.
Let's talk about what actually happened. $46.2 million in losses on a franchise that's 40 years old. It's old, it's dead, and unfortunately for all of the category, people are geometrically not watching late night TV anymore. Here's the problem for Colbert. His contract is a payout contract through a transaction where there's a change of control. Only a moron would tell the president to F off before he gets his check. Okay? So what's going to happen now, in my opinion, is tomorrow, CBS, his boss, will fire him, and they will litigate for the
there's definitely a harshness in his values. Only a moron would do this thing.
Now at this point, he said the gloves are off. He's slamming his own bosses for their decision to cancel his show. Listen.
Oh, he's still saying.
How could it purely be a financial decision if the Late Show is #1 in ratings? Over the weekend, somebody at CBS followed up their gracious press release with a gracious anonymous leak saying,
skip.
The CBS bosses don't want to whack him. Problem with him. That's not very funny. That's the problem with him. He's not funny. And by the way, if the CBS bosses don't want to whack him, I'll do it for them. I'd fire that guy in 4 seconds if I were running the show there. Go on. And then let him litigate for his cash if he's worth 20, 30, 40. Let him wait 12 years through litigation and hire his own lawyers. That guy is dumb.
You know what's interesting that it's interesting that apparently Trump would fire him.
That's conspiracy.
His bosses. Like, what is this guy?
Well, I mean, he has power hands.
Come on, this guy, I'm pretty sure this guy values extrovert sensation. I don't think he's strong in extrovert sensation, but he definitely values it.
Okay, no one knows.
Let's see this. 3 tips that changed my life forever. Sort of sharing, these are the things which made me successful. Very gamma. Very gamma.
when I was
Actually adapted by thinking, right, I need to dress smart, and this is how I dress smart, and this is what I do.
class,
That suit, okay, this one's got some tailoring on it. You can see on the edge, but it's
we thought such hot shit. I mean,
he's got the same sort of tie bar going on.
take on the world.
It's very sort of contained, very sort of quite neat. But it's like this guy puts on a suit because he thinks that's what you're meant to do. You're meant to put on a suit to look more formal and to be taken seriously. And then he goes on a chat show with lots of people who are in basically dressed with t-shirts and shorts, whatever else it is, and he looks totally out of place. So, and he doesn't then adjust. He doesn't undo his tie. He doesn't, just take off his suit and go into a shirt. He does. He keeps that on.
Another terrible.
I don't think ethics is strong for him. I'd be surprised if you're an SEE, for instance.
I was telling you, I love what
I think they're keeping the whole cold, hard truth, putting on this tough. You say it's a persona. I think it's almost aspirational. He wants to be seen as a tough guy. It's slightly overdone in a slightly comical way in terms of how it's overdone. It makes total sense for a mobilizing function.
today I'm that guy. I'm that guy walking in those MBA classes at Harvard and MIT, looking at them and saying, "You know nothing." And the real world's going to kick the living shit out of you. And I can't believe this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
But he was absolutely right. And so today, with all of the experiences I've had, all the good, the bad,
Intuition is just experience distilled. Advice. My stepdad, guest speaker. Sort of, this is the advice, this is the information. Very extroverted logic.
I can sit in a room with somebody.
Cold, hard truths, what I've learned from my hard experiences.
So I listen to that, and I listen to the person, I listen to the plan.
But it kind of wears thin. There isn't much charisma going on there. It isn't really leveling. Steve doesn't care what you thought. I'm not sure about that. He evangelized technology.
The distractions are called
So signal from noise.
what you're mandating.
Yeah, that's the relevance, that's introverted intuition.
Developing all this software. We would meet every quarter to determine development budgets. Steve was not a very nice guy. I remember one specific day in Cupertino in the old office, and I was there with my team, and he used to berate everybody. He was brutal. And one of my marketing team said, "Steve, before we do the next version of Oregon Trail, which is going to cost $12 million put out next quarter, of which you're going to have to pay at least..."
He's got exactly the same suit. It's his uniform.
110,000 schools in America. He went out of his mind. He said they don't know what
this is a wealthy man. He has one or two suits.
I decide what they want, and only I will decide. I couldn't take it anymore. I said, "Steve, when you say that, you don't respect anybody in this room." And he said, "Are we making money? Are we growing share? Am I dominating in schools? Yes or no?" "That's true, Steve." He said, "Well, shut up and let's just stay focused." That's 85% signal right there. Doesn't care what you think, doesn't give a damn, and is so focused on delivering results and how wildly successful.
That's not
the modern day example of it.
It's not exactly right for Steve Jobs. It's not that Steve didn't care what people thought. It's that he wanted to set what people thought. He wanted to decide what that was. And so he wasn't going to spend his time following what others thought. He was setting what people thought. Whereas when it comes to Kevin O'Leary, he's someone who's more inclined to try to socially adapt to follow what people think, putting on this outfit because he thinks this is what is going to cause him to be accepted in some sort of way. So really, it's a question of being contrarian versus being an obstinate type. And he's an obstinate type, whereas Steve Jobs was a contrarian type. But it's not quite. He's reinterpreted in gamma form, which is not caring what people think of you, which isn't quite right for someone who dedicated himself to evangelizing technology and making people almost religiously excited by technology.
The only man on earth that is 100% signal is Elon Musk. He will walk away from a conversation if he doesn't feel he's gaining any useful information.
He is 100% focused on Signal, and look at what he's achieved, and he's not even finished yet. The ones of you that will be successful in here will develop the approach.
Not even that, like Elon Musk's variation, the amount of things which he does, suggests he's not entirely focused on Signal. But I think what Kevin Leary is doing is he's interpreting these lessons through a very gamma lens, which is you need to focus on the signal. It's the relevance. This is the introverted intuition for him.
My mother was a fiercely independent woman. She went through a very.
Well, this is the secret to becoming rich. This is how you become successful. It's all extroverted logic.
Wanted to have her own financial independence for the rest of her life. She took 20.
But you can see that there's the same outfit. You see the streamlining of his aesthetic to something which is simple, repeatable, copy paste, so he doesn't have to worry about it too much. Meanwhile, he has a certain detachedness from, just chilling and getting on with other people in that respect. He's far more comfortable. He can take a sort of more tough approach. And he seems to have built that up over time, that sort of tough persona, which he seems to very much enjoy and relish doing. Meanwhile, just chilling and sort of vibing with others, he doesn't really do. I think Tim suggests I don't invest in dreams, I invest in execution. I don't think that's anipolar. I don't think that's what it means. I think that's an extroverted logic versus passion-oriented extroverted ethics investment. This guy's clearly about signal, which is less about the dream, but more about the signal for relevance to one's aspirations. And the execution is crucial for any sort of extroverted logic type. Right. You wouldn't have an ESE say, I don't invest in dreams, I invest in execution. But you can definitely have an LIE say that. Yeah, I'm thinking LIE at this moment in time. I want to see if there's any other quotes. I look at Twitter as brand building. Yeah, that's the extroverted ethics role right there. Brand building. That is the language someone who's extroverted logic uses when they approach extroverted ethics. It's a necessary thing you have to do to make your business succeed. You have to build your brand. That's not someone who lives inside and embodies extroverted ethics. That's someone who sees it as something which is put upon them, which they then have to do. Money is my military. Each dollar a soldier. I never send my money to battle unprepared and under again extrovert sensation, martial language. He values extroverted sensation. If you want a friend, buy a dog. Well, there we go. The lack, but that reveals so much. The lack of natural ability to trust in other people. But the dog is so unconditionally trusting, so without guile and deception, that he said, buy a dog. That's how you get your trust. That is the introverted ethics as a suggestive function. I'm not trying to make friends. I'm trying to make money. Yeah, that's what okay. That's sort of a gap. That's gamma in general. Even SE would actually say that when I talk to SEs. There's something very visceral about watching people beg for money. It's powerful. This is the extroverted sensation, but it's mobile. It's a bit too much. It's a bit too over the top. Don't cry about money. It never cries for you. My problem with unions is they breed mediocrity. Very, very gamma. That's almost Ayn Randian gamma-ishness. I was doing practical things about owning a Porsche, but all offset by the driving experience. It really is unique. And Lamborghinis and Ferraris come close, and they are more powerful, but they don't handle like a Porsche. Money equals freedom, autonomy, in other words. As far as I'm concerned, Twitter's wiped out Facebook. I'm done with Facebook. That's sort of the finality of introverted intuition, extroverted sensation there. Being employed is never a good outcome. That's just an opinion. I'm inclined to agree, to be fair. Right. I've known a lot of LIs to really be into cars. They like sort of the powerful feeling they get when they drive one. It's It's not for everyone else to see. It's not a status symbol. It's more they get that sort of thrill and the rush and they're driving one. It's like a concrete mark of what they've achieved as well. It's sort of mechanical and technical. Every entrepreneur in Canada owes the next generation a roadmap of how to do it again. He sees his public duty as sharing his knowledge of how it is best done, which again, it fits very much into the extroverted logic. Yeah, I think I don't see anything here that goes against LIE. I've met many entrepreneurs who have the passion, even the work ethic to succeed, but are so obsessed with an idea they don't see its obvious flaws. Think about that. If you can't even acknowledge your failures, how can you cut the rope and move on? Once again, that's the extroverted logic. This isn't someone who lacks the ability to reflect. This is someone who can reflect. He just also sort of an impatient drive to move forward and push forward at the same time. Yeah, I think LIE. I'm not sure what else it could be from this. I think the suit is a big giveaway. This isn't someone who experiments with aesthetic. He finds something which is sort of very conservative, workable, and he'll be conservative in his suit, even in a situation like where he's sitting around with people in sports gear, it just look ridiculous. Because that's a good example of a weak area that's still a tried and attempted. It's very 2D extroverted ethics. I think the 1D introverted sensation. And also where extrovert ethics is not actually valued by him. He's not trying out different looks very much at all. It's more, okay, what conforms, which is again the fluidity of extroverted ethics in there. All right. So yeah, I think LIE makes the most sense. I hope that helps. Let me now turn to Reza Pahlavi. I'm really looking forward to doing this one. Reza Pahlavi. So definitely the man of the hour. I'm sure who's been following what's going on in Iran. It's very gripping. I've been checking every day, listening to Mayar Tusi. I think is a fantastic source of information on what's going on in Iran, especially with so much being being hidden from the sort of the disabling of the internet in the area. So Mayar Tusi is a very useful source of information. Yeah, Reza Pahlavi. Right, the crown prince in exile, although who may soon be returning to Iran. Of course, this article title be changed to Reza Pahlavi is under discussion. I see, because I guess that's because there's a desire to say he's no longer the crown prince, he's now the Shah, the new Shah. Look, not quite yet, but potentially soon. Potentially quite soon. He's an Iranian politician and dissident in exile in the United States, a member of the Pahlavi dynasty. He's the son of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the last Shah of Iran, and Faradiba is one of the mainstream figures of Iranian opposition to the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran. He was officially made crown prince at the time of his father's coronation, 1967. He'd be sort of sent out like 12 years later. He moved to the United States for pilot training at Reese Air Force Base. Next year, his father was overthrown and the monarchy was abolished in the wake of the Iranian Revolution led by Ruhollah Khomeini. In 1980, following the death of his father in exile in Cairo, he declared himself Shah of Iran, styling himself Reza Shah the second, and actively participated in the political activities opposing the Islamic Republic from abroad. Co-founded the Iran National Council. Ideologically, he has expressed support for liberal democracy, constitutional monarchy, and has advocated for a referendum to be held in Iran to determine the nature of future government. He's repeatedly called for protests against the Islamic Republic. He's called for removal of the current government from power. He has also advocated for Iran to become the allied Western world, as well as Israel. Born in Tehran, older son Yep. He was born. 98 political prisoners were pardoned. Government declared a 20% reduction in income tax. Doesn't really to do with him yet. Let's see. As a cadet of the Imperial Iranian Air Force, he sent to the United States in August because he was pilot training. So the Iranian Revolution, he left the base about 4 months earlier than planned. He studied at Williams College, but dropped out in 1980, understandably. He then enrolled at the American University in Cairo as a political science student. His attendance was irregular. His body dropped out of the program because he studied privately with Iranian professors who focused on Persian culture and history, philosophy, and all. Well, that kind of makes sense. If he wants to be the Shah, he needs to understand Iran. His father was ill. Media reported that some monarchist elements advised the Shah to oust Reza in favor of his younger son, Ali Reza. Why? So Reza's background, training, and interest in public affairs were too limited to become his successor. Shah was understood to have rejected the idea and abdicated himself in favor of one of his two sons. The Shah died in 1980. Farah Pahlavi proclaimed himself as the regent. A title in pretense on his 20th birthday. Reza Pahlavi declared himself to be new king of Iran, Reza Shah II, and the rightful successor to the throne of the Pahlavi dynasty. Immediately after, the spokesman of the United States Department, associated with the US government from Reza Pahlavi, by stating the US government did not intend to support Pahlavi, and assuring that the US government recognized the newly established post-revolutionary Iranian government. Oh dear. Yeah, he remained in the Kuba Palace and developed close ties to pro-monarchy groups, while facing rejection from other opposition groups. This is the guy who saw the loss of his dynasty, who saw the loss of the crown that he felt was he would inherit one day, and the loss of that, to see then his US, which was thought to be an ally, where he had fled in for safety, then sort of turn against him, and very sort of cynically and pragmatically support the mullahs instead. So this is a guy with a great deal of resilience. He remained in the Kuba Palace and developed close ties to pro-monarchy groups while facing rejection from opposition groups and left-wing dissidents. He's a statement for the Persian New Year. He then announced in August he would be secretly planning to overthrow the Iranian government, stating, "So far I've been unwilling to unveil the existence of exerted plans, for I don't wish to jeopardize the lives of some of our best children. My actions have been unknown to you, but I want to assure you that the necessary steps are being taken in the best orderly way to save Iran." He has played a long game. He's played a very long game. Over 46 years of a game, you could say. Yakov Nimrodi told BBC in a radio interview that, along with Adolf Schwimmer and Adnan Khashoggi, he was involved in the Pahlavi and genocide Razvani to scheme a coup d'etat and install Pahlavi in Iran. He was high profile as an Iranian abroad who campaigned for human rights, democracy, and unity among Iranians in and outside Iran. It was separation of religion and state in Iran and free and fair elections for all freedom-loving individuals and political ideologies. He exhorts all groups dedicated to a democratic agenda to work together for a democratic and secular Iranian government. I mean, okay, these are all things. If you were to adopt the cynical lens, that message of his is one which is very attractive. We need to really see when he becomes Shah. Well, I guess you could say he already is the Shah because his he's been the Shah in exile and the Crown Prince in exile. Although you could say it's maybe when the monarchy has been restored, he's once again being a Shah. I guess it's debatable, but until he actually is in power as a Shah, you won't know what he actually does. This is what he says he's going to do, you could say, but he casts himself more as a symbol than a politician, and has called himself ready to serve his country. Well, that's also entirely appropriate for a monarch. You don't cast yourself as a politician. You are a symbol. That's the point of being the head of state. I wouldn't say that's particularly type related. It's just appropriate to his function. That's what I do in response to Iranian people's trust to reinforce their voices. I don't tell them what to do. I'm not a political leader. He also urged members of the Iranian armed forces opposing the Islamic Republic, but work for the government to engage in peaceful disruption with a coordinated front against the regime. whilst acknowledging support from demonstrators trying to return the monarchy. He also stated, what would it do in Iran? It's the response to their trust is reinforce their voices, not tell them what to do. Okay. There isn't much here that's really personality relevant at the moment. Even though sort of visit to Israel, it makes total sense because his father was one of the more friendly monarchs towards Israel. He definitely, in the same way that the current Iran is the most fervently anti-Israel, it makes sense for the monarchy to be more pro and see them as a natural ally. So, this is all, good statecraft. Political views, there's some secular, democratic, and liberal Iran. So intention to make it. This also follows on from the views of his father, but also his grandfather, even more so, who really set that secular liberalism, perhaps a bit too firmly. Whereas Reza is a bit less of a sort of less absolutist and is more open, I think, to a constitutional monarchy rather than an absolute monarchy. There's no intent to take a long-term leadership role in Iran, so the Iranian people must choose the form of rule they prefer, a constitutional monarchy or republic. I think he wants to be a monarch, to be honest. I don't think he actually wants there to be a republic. To separation of religion from state as a primordial principle and precondition to democratic order. I think increased tolerance. No. All I'd say from this is someone who knows how to play the long game and is not idiotic. He's an intelligent person. About religion, as it's a private matter, but you must know I'm, of course, by education and conviction, a Shia Muslim, very much a man of faith. It is the Bandara Atash Kadeh Zoroastrian temple in Houston, Texas, and participated in the Yasna ceremony. Zoroastrianism is entwined with Iranian history and civilization. Yasna and I visited the Zoroastrian fire temple in Houston, with indigenous Iranian faith, showed solidarity with their compatriots. This is all, public symbol person speak. So I can't really diagnose much from it. What else can we look at here? Let's see some interviews. He's a bit further back.
What are your thoughts as you see the events unfurling in Egypt?
Before anything, Mr. Morgan, if you allow me to say that Egypt has a very special place in my heart and my family's heart. It is the country that offered my family sanctuary and welcomed us with open arms. I'm eternally grateful to the Egyptian people on behalf of my family. This is something we will never forget. And we are, of course, grateful to both President Sadat and President Mubarak for having allowed us the opportunity to visit Egypt, to be able to pay our respects on my father's tomb, which, as you know, lies in Egypt. Having said that, I've been, of course, following the recent events very closely. And what I can tell you is not necessarily specific to Egypt, but when we see Iran, we see Tunisia, and we see many other things, I think it speaks of a new era.
Actually, what? I wonder who'll actually have his father's body taken back to Iran once he becomes once the monarchy is restored. Probably would.
And it speaks of a new generation, a generation that demands to be heard, a generation that can no longer take no for an answer, a generation that expects to have every right in freedom and participation, and of course, opportunities. And as such, I think it is time for the world to recognize that if we had eras where leaders would make decisions or foreign powers would make decisions, isn't it about time that we let the people make the decisions and have a choice?
Isn't the problem with that is that it's a great idea in theory. We all would agree with this. The power to the people, give them what they want. As you know better than most, in 1979 in Iran, the wrong kind of people took over, many would argue. You got these Islamic fundamentalists came in.
Ooh.
Suddenly it turned into a very different country very quickly. I could see potentially the danger here with Egypt. If people aren't careful and this political void goes on too long, you could see a similar problem where extremists come in and you end up with a very, very different country.
No, of course, I would understand those who will be concerned about that outcome. But then again, don't we learn from history? I hope we do. And I don't think you should underestimate the intelligence of people who have known how wrong things could turn by looking at what happened in Iran. I don't think that what has propelled Tunisians or Egyptians or Yemenis or even
Difficult his
Jordanians
father's eyebrows.
to speak out is motivated by the Islamists who took over our country and have kept it hostage for 30 years. I think they take heart for what happened in 2009 of the Green Movement and the aspiration of today's generation who has, by trial and error and by paying a very heavy price, appreciates what it is that we have a separation of religion from state as a prerequisite to democracy. They appreciate human rights. They appreciate those things that would be jeopardized should they fall into the trappings of extremists taking over. I don't think people are oblivious to that. So give people a little bit more faith on that, but work with them, help them so that indeed we cannot have the wrong outcome. And the best way to guarantee that you won't have a wrong outcome is to help the institutions that are moderate, that are secular, that are democratic, because the radicals will then be marginalized. On the other hand, if you don't do all of the above, these forces will become cynical, they will become hostile, which is the perfect breeding ground for extremists who always take advantage of that and turn it into an event.
Have you or any of your family spoken to President Mubarak in the last week?
Not in recent weeks, of course. And my mother, who regularly goes to Egypt every year, again on the anniversary of my father's passing,
So see, he plays a very soft game, but also a very strategic game. This is someone whom I doubt would be very weak in introverted intuition. I also doubt he'd be very weak in extroverted ethics. I think it's probably at the very least a role function. I think there's a sense of he's quite pragmatic. I want to see this video. The Unseen Prince. Let's take a look at this. That's Mohammed Reza Pahlavi. Okay, we can skip the. Okay, there we go. The part 2 as well. This is very propagandic, though, I'm sure. Look. Now, do you see? Now, do you see how he's not wearing a suit? He is now. So, right, I'm going to show myself in a far more relaxed way, and I'm going to match what the person opposite me. So there's a bit more, perhaps a bit more skill here in extroverted effort. I guess you could say, he's had the chance to actually set this and decide this, whereas in the other guy, Kevin O'Leary, he sort of must have walked in and found everyone in sort of less smart gear. But yeah.
من در خدمتتون که چند به اصطلاح ایونت مختلف بودم حرفاتون رو گوش کردم و مردم سوالاشون از شما میپرسیدن متوجه شدم یک المان بسیار مهمی اینجا هستش اونم آشنایی با شخصیت خود شماست انگیزه که من بتونم از شما درخواست بکنم بدون هیچ پرده رک و بیرو درواسی با هم یک گفتگویی داشته باشیم و بیشتر با شخصیت خودتون آشنا بشیم.
به خاطر همینم بود که خیلی بر من جذاب و جالب بود این ایده چون همیشه دنبال این فرصتی بودم که برخلاف آنچه که مردم تصور میکنن یا یک برداشته از قبل دارن راجع به یک فرد شناخت خود اون فرد به هر حال مهمه در هر نوع تشخیصی که قرار بگیرن. مثلا به خاطره این رو بگم بچه بودم شاید 7-8 سالم بود و توی هتلی بودیم و پرستارم با من بود و یکی از کسانی که خود معروف آجدان من بودن و داشتیم از آسانسور می اومدیم پایین و در که باز شد 2 نفر اومدن سوار شدن بعد یه نگاهی به من کردن و طرف برگشت گفتش که این پسر شما چقدر شبیه ولیعهده. من چون نگفتم تو من راست میگی خیلی همه اینا خیلی حرفو میزنن حالا منظورم چی از این داستان؟ برای که تصور این که مثلا خب ولیعهد مملکت کجاست و تو کاخ بودادان و دودور و تشریفات و گارد و بساط از این خبرها اون شکل نبود، مگر در مراسم رسمی که خب به هر حال تشریفاتی هست، جریانی هست. ولی حتی از بچگی من خیلی سعی می‌کردم تو مردم باشم.
Urge to be among the people, get a perception.
فرض می‌کنن آنچه واقعا هست،
reality.
مثلا خیلی تفاوت داره.
دقیقا همینطور. من فکر میکنم که هرچی ما بیشتر با خود شما الان آشنا بشیم، اون احساس نزدیکی، اطمینان خیلی بیشتر میشه و اصلا نه تنها این مسئله خوب هست، ولی الان بسیار مهم هست، مثلا موقعیت کلیدی هست. روی این حساب دوست دارم بریم از آغاز کودکی شما شروع کنیم.
Right.
خاطرات رو در چه سنی متوجه شدم که من در یک خانواده بعضی خاطرات رو به زحمت آدم یادش میاد، مثلا 4 سالگی 5 سالگی اون حدودا. خب هنوز اونجور متوجه داستان نبودم، ولی فکر کنم اولین باری که متوجه شدم که یه داستانی تو کار هست، یه همچین نگاهی ویژه‌ای به من هست، همون روز مراسم تاجگذاری مادرم بود. چقدر برای این کار بایستی تمرین میکردم و بعد از مدرسه باز میرفتیم کاخ گلستان رو لباس بپوشم و بگم چجوری بالا برم و از اون سالن چجوری رد بشم و چجوری بشینم، چون خب یه حالت مثل تئاتر کردم و قبل از نمایش بایستی تمرین بکنی. در مسیر بازگشت خب مردم ابراز احساسات میکردن و من میدونستم خب نسبت به پدر و مادرم این کارو میکنن. بعد یه وقتی که دارن این رو نسبت به من نشون، نگاهشون چشم هم بود، احساساتشون نسبت به من بود. گفتم اوکی، مثل که یه چیز متفاوتی هست. شاید بار اول 6-7 سالم بود فکر کنم. جوانی که مدرسه‌شو داره میره، همشاگردیاشو داره، مثل هر بچه دیگه‌ای خب یه نقش رژی هم دارم. نه که بخوام بگم حالا ولیعهد مملکت تو سن کودکی خبریه، هرچی بچه دیگه فوتبال تو بازی میکنی، نقاشی تو میکنی، ولی خب این کارخونه رو بازدید کن، اون نمایشگاه رو افتتاح بکن، اون جایزه رو به اون نمیدونم کارگر بده، تو خود مملکت سفر بکن و مراسم رسمی بازی‌های.
So at the moment, there's nothing really unusual or particular to his character. We're seeing something, it's clear to me he wants people to see him as accessible. He wants people to see him as someone who doesn't see himself as really above everyone else. But, you know, kind of like everyone else, but he is a royal with certain duties which require a certain amount of formality. So that's what he wants people to think. The fact he's thinking about this, again, I don't think he's an ILI like his father. Yeah, I'm not inclined to think necessarily as an LIE either, and he's a very sort of polished LIE with some very good advisors. I'd like to see some more. But it's interesting that he has retained this focus on becoming the Shah, holding on to what would have seemed like a pipe dream for so long and believing in that and not allowing that sort of, you know, realism to, or you could say almost pessimism to get in the way of his belief he would be the Shah again one day. So there's an idealism which has paid off.
جدا از یک زندگی یک جوانی که مثل هر جوانی صبح میشه به مدرسه، از برمیگرده تکلیف شبش رو انجام میده، تلویزیون نگاه میکنه.
I also don't think he's an LSI. I think that's, he comes across quite soft.
یه روز خودم بودم، یه روز ولیعهد.
خب بچه‌هایی در این سن بدون هیچ دغدغه‌ای بچگیشون رو می‌گذرونن از این تمرینات و از این به اصطلاح دیسیپلین، از این مقرراتی که شما باید از سن خیلی کم اینا رو انجام میدادین. چقدر از سختیاش به نظرتون به خاطرتون هست؟
این قسمتش اونقدر سخت نبود. یه مقدار خب هرس می‌خوردم که آقا من ترجیح میدم الان با همکلاسیام فوتبال بازی کنیم نه که بیام اینجا تمرین فلان انجام بدم. بیشتر نه که مشکل باشه، ولی خب این هستش که شما مثلا فرض کن
Actor in a film or a theatre.
سینما یا تئاتر باشه، خب بالاخره باستی
Practice, memorize.
حفظ بکنی.
دقیقا همینطور ولی نه در 6 سال.
خب این هم قرعه‌اش افتاده بود به من.
Drawn.
چون
Yes.
پسرم
Yes.
پادشاه
The feeling of the duties.
آماده میشم برای اینکه یه روزی اون نقش رو ایفا بکنم. خب قطعا بایستی یک دیسیپلین خاصی، یک طرز برخورد خاصی،
Social behavior.
خاصی که خارج از حالت عامیانی یا عادی است.
اینجاست که ما میتونیم بیشتر به متوجه بشیم که شما و کسانی که در این پوزیشن هستن قابل احترامن که چطور با این فشار مسئولیت. من خودم مثلا به عنوان یک کسی که فقط مسئولیت فقط درس و مشقم باید انجام میدادم، خیلی برای من سخت بود که این مشقم باشم تمام بکنم. شما نه تنها تحصیلاتتون بلکه خیلی مقررات دیگه تو زندگیتون از سن بسیار کم خیلی مهم بوده.
از دید افراد عادی درک این که چقدر میزان از خودگذشتگی که این افراد نشون بدن در زندگیشون که از خیلی چیزها باسی محروم بمونن یا محدود باشن یا دسترسی مثل بقیه نداشته باشن هست و درکش برای افراد عادی بعضی وقتا مشکله، مگر که
In that
خودتون
situation to experience expectations and demands,
چند مقابل
multiply when you have such a role.
وقتی اون نقش شده. و نکته دوم، اون شهرت باعث نشه که
Grounded,
و خیلی مشکل سر
when you can imagine
و این رو آدم اگه
stating nonetheless vision.
در این نقش قرار میگیرن داشته باشن، خب قاعدتا راهشون کج نمیشه.
خودم وقتی با شما آشنا شدم این حس و افتادگی شما رو در جا
Grounded nature.
احساس کردم و متوجه شدم شما کسانی که دور براتون هست رو یک جوری باهاشون
How's the way you interact with them?
خیلی به زود خودشون هستن و
I think that's
احساس نمی‌کنن که
he wants this is very much about marketing his introverted sensation. I'm inclined to think that introverted sensation is therefore probably a value of his. It doesn't have to be a value of his. It could be very politically useful for it to be seen to be a value of his. And if that's so, then at least he has enough extroverted ethics to realize he has to market that about himself. I don't think he's an SLI. He has played a very long game, unlike what I expect of an ESC. We need to see some more.
جایگاهی قرار گرفتن که شاید نمیتونن راحت باشن. این خیلی زیباست. و یک
humility in your category, groundedness, humility. If we take this all at face value,
هر کسی که شما رو ببینه میبینی شما یک جوری رفتار میکنین و همین جوری که میفرمایین و الان من بیشتر متوجه میشم آگاهی شما به این که دور بر من
friends just surround to be flattery, so don't get a big ego.
سر من خیلی بزرگ نکنه و آگاهی شما به این مطلب باعث میشه که اینقدر مردم رو در یک جهتی نگه میدارین که همه راحت باشن و خودشون باشن. این یک واقعا کوالیتی بسیار بسیار
زیباست. مهمترین چیز در زندگی یک انسان حقیقت از حقیقت مهمتر و نهایی‌تر.
Acknowledge anything that is more important than the truth. For me, such things is always important to me. Is truthful and what is not. People who think tell truth, but they've done a good deed. Real, destructive, defense mechanisms very early. Okay. understanding defense mechanisms, very understanding people being fearful of telling the truth. And of course, I don't say I've not faced mistakes with my take on this, saying it was not exploited as it was. So she be comfortable with me. I think I'm inclined to think he probably does value introverted sensation at this point. Question anyone? Maybe I should call you.
و این دوباره از همین دیدگاه افتادگی و اینکه شما براتون مهمه که کسایی که دورتون هستن رو
Really like
دوست دارید که بنا
be
به صحبت
comfortable.
خودتون خیلی
Could he be an SEI? Could he be an SEI? That's my very provisional guess at this point in time.
شما رو خطاب بکنم که وقت شما بر نخوره اشتباه نگم و برام خیلی خیلی زیبا بود اولین باری که شما و خانواده رو آشنا شدم و ملاقات شام داشتم با دور.
Let's just very quick pause. I want to look back at what was interesting there in his Wikipedia article. There you go. He dropped out. This is irregular. Proclaim himself Shah of Iran. He was told. I remember he was told to. Adventure. There's this part where his brother. His brother who actually committed suicide. Goodness. I don't know why he committed suicide. A quick detour there. Why did he die? Depression. Loss of identity in exile. Very traumatic for him was loss of identity in exile. This is the thing. His sister also died by suicide. This is the thing. His resilience is very particular here. That two of his siblings, in the loss of their inheritance as royals, would choose death in their exile in America, and Reza Pahlavi never gave up that belief that he would return to being the Shah. It's quite something. But also say about his brother that there's Ali Reza, there's something. So monarchist elements had advised the Shah to oust Reza. This is in 1980 in favor of his younger son Ali Reza, who was 13 at the time, and the Regency Council suggesting that Reza's background, training, and interest in public affairs were too limited to become his successor. That is very interesting. How old was he? In 1980, he was 20 at the time. He was 20 at the time, and people suggested that his training and interest was too limited to become his successor. I think that I'm trying to understand why that is. Just sort of maybe ChatGPT is an answer. Why? Worth checking. Reza being deeply unpopular with key elites. No, that's not. No, that's not right. That's the wrong. That is the wrong one. Okay, I'll do this. Good. Let's try this and see what it says. Why did this happen? I believe Reza symbolized the failed late Pahlavi system, lacked political preparation, served a rallying figure restored monarchy as it was desperate, factional, and unrealistic, seemed politically unprepared. He was trained mainly as a military partner, as a political leader, no governing experience, and never built an independent republic. He lacked charisma, ideological clarity, political instincts, even kept deliberately apolitical. Possibly challenged Khomeini's revolutionary legitimacy. He was associated with the late Shah's failures. There's a continuous system that collapsed. Okay, this is not really necessarily personality oriented. But okay, the point is that Reza Pahlavi was not an impressive figure, it seems. He was not an impressive figure. He was not this clear ruling figure that who could be bold and dynamic, it suggests. It sort of fits the idea he really wants to be seen as comfortable. It kind of supports the SCI idea, actually. This idea of he's able to stay grounded. He didn't choose suicide. That is a sort of groundedness in itself. But he can handle living as a regular person.
برای همینه که اصلا برای من مهم نیست که چه کسی دوست داره با لقب خطاب بکنه، بی لقب خطاب بکنه. یکی میگه شاهزاده، یکی میگه آقای پهلوی. امریکایی‌ها به من میگن RP، رضا پهلوی. من رضا پهلوی هستم. اصلا
Suffixes, prefix.
با من میخواین طرف باشی. اگه میخواین منو بذارید بالای
I think this is very alpha. He does not look to be put on the pedestal.
ولی من انتظارش رو ندارم. من انتظارش رو به غیر از اینکه منو بشناسه میگه اصلا طرف چی میگه.
The thing is, he says this at the same time. He is still, after all these decades, positioned himself as the Shah, positioned himself as the inheritor of Iran. What suggests to me is he does believe to some degree in the ideology of monarchy, and it is part of his belief system. But he wants to do that whilst also being an approachable monarch, which I think rules against Delta to some degree. I think Delta at this point would have just said, right, the monarchy is over. I can just be a regular person. I don't need to even try to be. But he doesn't even need to try to be a king anymore. But he hasn't. He's taken sort of middle view.
کلی خبر اونجا از کبابیش گرفته تا بستنیش گرفته تا خود بازار تجریش بستنی فروشی چیزی بود میومدن الدورادو اسمش بود بستنی قیفی بود که
the cowboy hat.
خاطرات که
Memories of specifics, I should say. He remembers the ice cream.
اول سال که میشد خودم میرفتم
Fix my books.
سیم مینداختیم اون موقع کتابا رو
Remember glued tightly. He remembers these specifics. It's specific memory, which makes him more relatable. He is laboring the point a bit. It does make me a little bit suspicious, but
شمالم همین شمال ایران خیلی دوست داشتم تا بسونا میرفتیم خب خیلی میچرخیدم تو مناطق مختلف بامبرسر و کناردشت و خود نوشهر و جایی که میرفتیم و یه
atmosphere.
خوبی بود چون واقعا
You see people in their normal life.
دیگه مسئله تشریفات دربار نبود یا مهمونی های ویژه یا برنامه های از قبل تنظیم شده، واقعا به شکل طبیعی بود دیگه. میرفتی سر راه
Authentic in a natural way. But authenticity is natural.
یه قهوه خونه بود بغل
Coffee shop near the river.
شما هیچ گاردی خانواده با هیچ
گاردن بودن اون عقب میشستن دیگه از اون مراقب
Guard from a distance. There'd be a metal table with chairs.
آهنی بود.
There is quite a bit of specifics. You know, with a mulberry tree, he's remembering these concrete things quite a bit. Coca-Cola.
من هم
Either he's very practiced or he is just like this. Ordinary, relaxing.
شیپور و بوق و کرما هست. نه خیر از این خبرها نبود.
You can see there's a certain amount of sort of humor and even his facial expressions there.
رابطه خودتون و پدرتون به اصطلاح رابطه پشت پرده پدر و پسری. خب پدر شما طبیعتا یک فرد بسیار مشغول و کسی بودن که از نظر زمانی اون زمان خاص و اون زمانی که بتونن پرمعنا با فرزندانشون صرف بکنن فکر میکنم خیلی سخت‌تره اگه مقایسه بکنیم با خانواده.
I think what Isaac's saying, what would be his motivation for holding on to claim for so long? That's kind of what I'm thinking, yes. It's the belief in the monarchy that he is meant to be the next king that is almost instilled in him. That it doesn't make it's almost something untrue. He's always living a lie that he's not the Shah. I think it's something like this. And I think there's also in this an SEI can and does, see the sense of destiny as something which is placed on them. It is their role function. Sometimes I can create a sense of fatalism to them. I don't know. I think there is an ideology behind it.
چطور بوده؟
اونطور که میگی واقعا خیلی محدود بود. کمتر میدیدم که پدرم زودتر از ساعت 6 یا 7 شب کار اصلیش تموم بشه. گهگاه میرفتم مثلا اگه میخواستم بعد از شام یه فیلمی تماشا کنم میرفتم باشه فیلم تماشا میکردم.
It's watching a movie with him, quality time with him, sit together, watch a movie together. And so more clearly we just hit the revolution.
آیا خاطراتی حتی
His smile with his father is less. It's not a weak smile. It's a proper smile from him. It's a likable smile. Whereas Hungry Reza was always a bit sort of strained in the sort of what you show in your face.
خیلی از من این سوال رو جور دیگه میپرسن که خب آیا پدر شما چیز خاصی به شما گفتن؟ انتظار خاصی ازت داشتن؟ هیچ وقت این گونه صحبت رو نداشتیم. غیر مستقیم میخواست یاد بگیرم. نشستم یه جا نخست وزیر اومده گزارشی بده و داره باهاش صحبت میکنه و من دارم فقط شاهد این صحنه هستم. خود این یه آموزشه. یعنی غیر مستقیم میگه مسائل مطرح ایناست. و فکر کنم دلیل خاصی هم داره که هیچ وقت به من نگفت که حتما این راهو برو. یعنی در واقع می‌خواست که تجربیات خودم پیش برم. چون می‌دونست که همطور که نقش او چقدر تفاوت داشت. پدرش احتمالاً چقدر نقش من تفاوت خواهد داشت از آنچه که الان نقش ایشون هستن و شبیه. بنابراین شما نمیتونید یه مدل استاندارد بگی این مسئله رو همطور بلکه همه چیز متغیره دیگه. دنیا فرق میکنه، شرایط فرق میکنه. یه بیشتر جنبه فلسفی عرفانی تو خیلی با بیان ساده داشت. یعنی خیلی بیشتر جنبه از فاصله دورتر به کل داستان نگاه کردن.
Which makes sense for Mohammad Reza Pahlavi.
صحبت بکنیم راجع به مادر عزیز و روابط شما با ایشون از بچگی و چه نقشی برای شما داشتن تو زندگیتون.
طبیعتا مادر من چون یه مقدار وقت
I say
بیشتر
even in these videos of him and he's young, you can see there isn't austerity in him. There is approachability there.
مسئله سخت بکنن. خب دغدغه اصلیشون پرورش درست بچه ها بود و سرپرستی نزدیک پرستارایی که هر کدوم مسئول هر کدوم از بچه ها بودن. قسمت آموزشیمون بود طبیعتا موقع دوران مدرسه و خارج از اون ما رو در محیط های بیشتر هنری و نمیدونم چیزی که علاقه‌مندی خودشون بود قرار میدادن. مسئله طبیعت بوده باشه، موسیقی بوده باشه، چه می‌دونم فلان تئاتر رو بریم ببینیم.
I was just thinking it, yeah. So I think that the introverted logic is the part which is set by him. The introverted intuition is the part which is put onto him. This narrative he's talked about earlier about having to do all these things which separates him from everyone else, and that being his destiny. He sort of accepts that as his destiny, but he also said what he'd really like to do is to go off and just just enjoy himself in day to day and be approachable to people and approach people as they are in their natural lives. And yeah, it kind of does fit the introversion with then be the role function in this, and it's sort of socially mediated through the extroverted ethics, just sort of fitting in, blending in emotionally, which he seems to be quite good at doing. Sort of amount of just understated. Even where he's dressed, it's relaxed. It's not schlocky. It's not it's respectable, but it's also clearly dressed down. It's tasteful.
همیشه توی خطوط خب اون
Creative.
هنریه که تو ما بچه ها رو بیشتر از مادر و خب خیلی از این لحاظ
Everything deeper.
عمیق‌تر به بچه‌ها نگاه می‌کنیم و از ابتداش همینطور. البته خب پدر من خیلی زود از بین رفتن. سیاسی خارج شدن نیستش که در سن 60 سالگی، ولی مادرم اکنون در سن 84 سالگی این مدتی که خارج از ایران بودیم مسلماً به کلی فرقش از زمانی که در ایران بودم اینه که خیلی بیشتر وقت با ما صرف کردن و میکنن، خیلی بیشتر الان تجربیاتشون و داستاناشون رو با نوه‌هاشون مطرح میکنن و یه رابطه به کلی متفاوته. یعنی دیگه اون
He's noticing the differences in how she is, the relationships.
مادر و مادر بزرگی بیشترین جایی که میبینم مثلا یک
Seeing the light in his mother's eyes, it's more extroverted ethics there.
مشهد داشتم صحبت میکردم که مثلا دانشجو بوده، روز زنگ زدم به اون مادری که اتفاق شده و she does that، یعنی این کار انجام میدن، یعنی رندام یه زنگی میزنن کسی که براشون حالا ایمیل فرستاده یا تکست فرستاده تو صحبت میکنن.
It feels a lot like it does feel quite similar to the English monarchy, this a constitutional monarchy way of seeing things, being sent this email, taking joy in helping people in that way.
مثلا حس میکنم که یه جوری با این همه سنی که پشت سر گذاشتن هنوز اون حالت علاقه و دلسوزیشون هست. چرا؟ برای اینکه همیشه این روحیه رو ذاتاً داشتن که هی امید بدن، هی آینده رو روشن کنن.
Hopes in the future brightly. It's very soft, positive language again.
شما سن کمی داشتید و وقتی انقلاب
His father's nothing like this, by the way. Nothing like this.
و خانواده شما چیزایی که به ذهنتون میاد چه حسی بود؟
His father's quite dry,
چجوری به سر برد؟
very deeply insightful, his father.
من اون موقع خب تکساس بودم، همون دوره خلبانی که بهتون قبلا گفتم تو ریس در لابوک تکساس، و خب اخبار مربوط به ایران که تقریبا هر روز و هر شب تو تلویزیون‌های امریکا مطرح بود و نمیدونم روزنامه تایمز و نیوزویک هفته‌ای میگذشت که یه عکسی از نمیدونم تظاهرات در ایران و سوزوندن عکس پدرم و اینجور چیزا دائم بود. و
what happens now? That's what I've been trying to assess this week in Tehran, talking to the friends and enemies of Ayatollah Khomeini and experiencing it firsthand.
البته پدر مادرم اون زمان خیلی سعی داشتم که من تمرکزم رو همون ادامه ترینینگ هم باشه و خیلی سعی میکردم که زیاد جوی که بود رو
The atmosphere distracted me, which was hard.
مثلا پرت میشه به چیزای دیگه و مشکل بود قطعا. بعد که رسیدیم به مرحله که از ایران خارج شدم، خب یه داستان دیگه بوده. تقریبا میشه گفتش که مثل خانه به گوشه از یک کشور به یک کشور دیگه همطور در حال جابجایی بودیم. البته چیزی که من ندیدم که متاسفانه برادر خواهرام بهش در واقع روشون اثر گذاشت، تمام این شعارهای مرگ بر شاه و الله اکبر که از پشت دیوار کاخ نیاوران شبا میشنیدن، خب تو کلشون رفته بوده و فکر کنم شاید یکی از دلایلی که همچنان روشون انقدر اثر داشت که برادرم و خواهر کوچیکم نتونستن واقعا اون بخش به اصطلاح دیپرشنشون رو که حتما یه ربطی به غذای داشت و چیزی که بعد پدر خودشون دیدن آمد و اینا رو واقعا تحمل بکنن، اینا همه جزو فاکتورهای سختی است که متاسفانه انجامی به اینکه خودکشی بکنن و نتونن اینجوری خودشون رو از اون به اصطلاح
So he was able to he was able to ground himself again, whereas everyone was caught in the past. Maybe he was removed, maybe got so immersed with all the events. I think it's more that he got all immersed. He could just ground himself in the present to some degree. The point he did that without losing a sense of what his destiny really was. It's the value of feeling pain because of what has happened. Influence. Don't look to the past, look forward. It's his philosophy. He has a philosophy. From the worst parts into a positive inspiration. Be positive. It's almost Hakuna Matata. It's not quite Hakuna Matata. It's not. He is also Simba coming back and becoming the king once again. So it's not Hakuna Matata, but there's a sense of don't put the past behind you is shared there.
این مهاجرت از ایران به مصر وقتی که اتفاق افتاد، سختی هایی که خیلی کلیدی بود و به ذهنتون میرسه چه عواملی بودن؟
اولین باری که بهمون گفته شد که پدرم سرطان داره، اون روزی بود که در بیمارستان در نیویورک بودم که همزمان شد با گروگانگیری در سفارت امریکا در تهران. یعنی حتی تو تقریبا اون چندین ماه بعد از خودشون از ایران.
I want to, I'm going to cut to part 2. I want to skip a bit. I want to see how it changes in the latter half.
بچه اشتراکی که داشتیم از اون ایرانی که میشناختیم در اون دورانی که بودیم و هیچ چیزی رو نمیتونه از ما بگیره.
ما از ازدواجتون 3 دختر بسیار دوست داشتنی داریم و الان ما در یک انقلابی هستیم که بزرگترین انقلاب زنان در دنیا هستش و شما از یک خانواده میان که هم مادرتون همسرتون و الان 3 دختر جوان که همون سن و سالای بچهای جوان ایران الان هستن که واقعا پایه‌های اصلی این انقلاب بودن. دلم میخواد بدونم شما چه نقشی در زندگی دخترانتون دارین و طرز فکر و تربیتتون برای بچه‌هاتون چیه؟
اولین و آخرین انگیزه من در تربیت
Get in a t-shirt and shorts. Look.
همراه با
Chills.
تصمیم البته. یعنی واقعا این یک تلاش مشترک هر دومون بود. این بود که کوچکترین توقع خارج از یک شهروند مسئول و مفید در جامعه جوردگی بارشون نیاد. بگذاریم تجربیات
Letting them experience on their own and learn. My own parents put us through
در محیط‌های مختلف ورزشی
different environments, sports or art to find our path. Very free, very sort of let it be.
یاد بگیم
And to make a mistake and learn from your own. Yeah. This isn't some of extroverted sensation as a mobilizing function. Independent, proceed with the best awareness and knowledge. Possession of anything that you want to do. Not for him to impose.
همیشه گفتم که هرگز زندگی رو بر اساس انتظاری که دیگران
Others have of you.
از تو دارن نکن، بلکه زندگی رو بر اساس انتظاری که از خودت داری بکن. و خب اینم شرط کردم با من شاملتون، چون نگران دیدگاه بقیه نباش، خودت باستی راضی باشی و خودت باشی.
You just want to be yourself.
خودت نباشی،
You're not yourself. The principle comes an act.
مبناش چیزی که خودت نیستی هست.
Not who you are, then what is the point?
خودت نباشی.
زندگی شما مثل بقیه انسان‌های عادی اون
I
مملکت
could even be Delta introvert from that.
شرایط تربیت شما، بزرگ شدن شما،
I'm sure that's right, but
شما بوده. خیلی فرق میکنه با کسایی دیگه. حالا شما خودتون به عنوان پدر وقتی که بچه دار شدین سبک بزرگ کردن بچه هاتون چقدر فرق میکرد با سبک پدر مادر خودتون؟ چجور سعی کردین بچه های خودتون رو محافظه بکنید و شرایطشون رو شاید بهتر از خودتون بتونید ایجاد کنید؟
خب از خیلی لحاظ کاملا به شکل فاحشی تفاوت داد. اولا اون موقع خب شرایط و ذهنیت و روش و رفتار خیلی فرق داشت، یه جامعه متفاوتی بود. من و خواهر برادرام فرزندان یک پادشاه ملکه بودیم در یک خانواده سلطنتی و تمام اون محیط و شرایط و نحوه برخورد افراد و افکار عمومی و نحوه جلوش به شکل رسانه‌ای اصلا یک دنیای دیگری بود.
wonder what other things he's done other than being, of course, the crown prince. But what else has he done? No, I won't do. He wanted to have a coup to overturn things. Which just means the extra sensation is not absent. It's probably also led by his generals to some degree. Various strands of opposition close to common vision for a post-clerical Iran within Iran. It seems to me he's still very much been a monarch in exile. He hasn't taken on a regular job. He's never ceased to be monarchic, which I think is also suggests that the extroverted logic is not really a feature for him. Usually, if someone in this circumstance, if they valued extroverted logic, they try to do something which is practically useful. And I haven't seen anything like that, at least from this. Financial and legal issues. So they've made what's left of his family wealth. His only full-time job being speaking out about Iran. There we go. There we go. That is a lack. That suggests extroverted logic is potentially the blind spot here. I'm not seeing a blind spot elsewhere. I'm seeing it potentially here. breaching the Iranian tradition by breaking his pledge to take care of him financially. Former Imperial Guard member. Age 58 said the court he abandoned over 400,000 property in Iran because Pahlavi assured him, "I'm going to pay you expenses and everything, take care of you better than my father did when he was hired, and then fired him with a handshake, and $9,000 in 1989. Shahbazi asked compensation, just claimed saying that Shahbazi received gifts worth several $1,000 and allowed to live luxuriously. He lived his house in Great Falls, and the seven was filed because his client ran out of money. If he was a loyal friend, he offered support as long as he could. He was sort of judged on was not involved in handling my financial affairs. And little knowledge of how his estate's money was spent and could not be held personally accountable for employment agreements with servants. The case dismissed. According to media reports, Pahlavi granted crime the court when the judge threw out the case. He accused Ansari of embezzlement, amounting to 24 million. Claimed 1.4 million lien against Pahlavi during the trial. His attorney told the court, due to demands of political responsibility, lack of experience in financial matters, she was subpoenaed Ansari for financial funds over the years. No one supported Ansari in any way. In Pahlavi's trust, conversely, no one betrayed Pahlavi's trust any more than Ansari. This guy is totally detached from the financial aspects of what he's doing, and okay, that is not so unusual for someone who was raised in the royal as a royal family member, right? But the point is, he's been in exile. He has, had every opportunity to go off and embrace the American dream of making your own money. He has not made his own money. He has lived off the money from the past, from his inheritance. He has not been entrepreneurial in the slightest. And I think that is a very clear sign to me that extroverted logic is his vulnerable function. Could he be IAI instead of SEI? It's possible. I'm inclined to think not, at least in terms of how he positions himself as someone who values introverted sensation and even extroverted intuition, rather than setting the course as to how things need to be and appreciating the use of extroverted sensation. That doesn't seem to be it. He could be an IAI using rhetoric of an SEI-ish nature to gather support. That is still quite possible. I can't rule that out. But if we take what he says at relatively face value, I'm thinking SEI makes more sense.
به همین دلیل بعد از انقلاب زندگی اینجا هست. ما زندگیمون بکنید کار سیاسی و فعالیت برای آزادی میهن یه بحثه، ولی بالاخره زندگی هم باید داشته باشیم. اصلا بر مبنای اون انتظارات یا تفکرات داشت. برای همینه که میگم خیلی تفاوت فاحش هست. برای همینه که من و همسرم این رو از روز اول قید و شرط کردیم که خیلی درگیر باشیم با زندگی و پرورش بچه‌هامون. اولویت اول
being involved in the raising of our kids. There's a that is not introverted. That is introverted. Being involved in it, to be immersed in it. That's a really important thing there. Have his opportunity to be involved in the raising of the kids. No, because introversion types tend to be, especially when they're royal, they will double down on the preference to stay removed from middle of the streets. There's so much introverted sensation here.
خب خیلی محدودتر میتونستن این نقش رو بازی کنن. ما هیچ کدوم از این محدودیت ها رو در زندگی خودمون الان نداریم. برای همینه که مکسیموم ممکن رو در اختیار بچه‌هامون گذاشتیم که از این بابت کمبودی نباشه حداقل.
No void in their lives.
نتیجه داد.
They're giving a well-rounded, wholesome way of being brought up.
خودشون دارن. خیلی هم خوب یاد گرفتن چجوری ارتباط موازی برقرار کنن.
Like it's consistent.
اینجوری که مطرح میکنی اتفاقا دقیقاً مسئله تفاوت دیگه. یه نظامی که وقتی که رهبرش اومد گفت بعد از 15 سال تبعید اصلا حس چیه، برگشت ایران گفت هیچ و اصلا اختناق و نفرت و تبعیض رو
Masters of life, peace, and equanimity.
و کینه رو مبنا قرار داد و شهادت رو در مقابل زندگی و صلح و آرامش، خیلی واضحه. اصلا تو
In our back, having
ادبیات نه
vocabulary,
تنها
not even in my
خانوادگی،
mind.
بلکه اصلا تو ذهنیت من نیست، بلکه نفرت
Hate only leads to
فقط سمت
revenge.
انتقام در میاد. انتقام هم آخر سر دور باطله،
Inspiration
در
date.
صورتی که
Forgiveness,
گذر و
a
بخشش
solution.
و آشتی، نمیگم زیر پا گذاشتن
There should be no
حق‌خواهی،
justice
عدالت طلبی، چون خیلی جنایت رو
in our country.
ولی کسانی که میگن که نمیبخشیم و فراموش میکنیم، یعنی حس انتقام جویی رو میخوان ترویج بدن، به دید من کمکی نمیکنه
Helping achieve peace and safety for the
به
people.
ایجاد یک فضای اعتماد و آرامش و امنیت.
It's not the personal revenge he doesn't like, which would be more of a gamma motivation.
خیلی قوی‌تره که
Return to humanity, compromise, and cooperation. Compromise is not very high.
اصلا نفرت انقدر بار منفی داره که
Negative energy that it can shake the body. Negative energy that it can shake the body. Very introverted sensation.
بلکه فکر نمی‌کنم که بشر از دید
And
تمدنی
say
یا
from a
انسانی
humanistic position, the best approach to take back betrayal.
تماس بست دادن یا مجازات هستش.
He could be accused of being weak for that. But he doesn't like it. He doesn't like the bad vibes. Bad vibes.
خب، یه مقدار بسی به فکر
You
بیشتر
have to think deeper.
خیلی آسونه که آدم بخواد نفرت داشته
You have
باشه،
hate and
انتقام
choose
داشته
revenge.
باشه،
But
خشونت رو راه بذاره و
it's not necessarily that deep. It's wholesomeness.
عقده
It's
داشته باشه و
being a
عصبی
peaceful
باشه.
person. It's
نه اینکه آدم درک نکنه این احساس.
saying don't emphasize these feelings
ممنون.
can't really be a goal.
بزرگتر از
Better than hate.
نفرت، فرصت دومی
Second
دادن
chances.
یه مقدار گذره. یه
Letting
مقدار
go.
نمیگم فراموش کردن، فرق داره. فراموش نمی‌کنیم
Not forget, but we can let it go.
ولی میتونیم گذر بکنیم. در آفریقای جنوبی وقتی کمیسیون Truth and Reconciliation
I think he's SCI. I do.
آشتی پیش اومد، واسه
I don't see what else he could be.
جرم مرتکب شد. ولی بگذاریم و بریم به سمت اجاده. بگم
I could do one more person quickly. I do have to stop at midnight UK time sharp. But I could do one more person if anyone wants to do a super chat for one more person. Up to you. In the meantime, I'm going to continue watching. Maybe I should see something else on Reza Pahlavi. Here's some of his addresses. Let's see. Who is Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's ousted? No, I don't see CNN. Exclusive interview. This is more recent. Let's see this.
It's almost like some cataclysmic event pushes you out of an orbit, and now you have to find a completely different path. It's a game changer in that sense. What you were supposed to be doing and what you were expected to do is now completely different.
And then let's
You are
read.
the first
See that again.
democracy.
Listen to this bit. This answer. I'm gonna go until 11:30. 6 more minutes for someone to do a super chat. If anyone wants me to do one more, up to you guys.
Liberation of Iran for 44 years, and I've dedicated my life towards that end.
If you were to tell your life story in 60 seconds.
Well, you're born into a royal family. You are the firstborn, therefore the first in line for succession. You're being prepped and groomed to assume that role one day, and then all of a sudden, a life-changing event happens where the continuity is broken, a revolution happens, you now find yourself out of the country in exile. So it's a completely different set of circumstances. It's almost like some cataclysmic event pushes you out of an orbit, and now you have to find a completely different path. It's a game changer in that sense. What you were supposed to be doing and what you were expected to do is now completely different.
For anyone who might not know, how would you have described who your father was?
Well, my father was the king of Iran. He came into power right after his father abdicated. That was during the Second World War.
See,
towards the end of the Second World War, and he assumes the role of the.
just a very, very quick thing there. He says he has to do something completely different. In a way, he hasn't actually. In a way, he has not given up being the Shah. In a way, he has not given up that destiny he was groomed for from a very young age to be that person. He almost stubbornly remained being that in exile. He hasn't taken up a job. He hasn't become non-royal. He hasn't done any of those things. He has sort of said, well, this is what I was conditioned to be, so I'm going to continue being it. And I'm sort of going to chill out in the US and, speak up for the cause and all the rest. And yeah, and not get so carried away that I drive myself insane. But yeah, I'm still going to be the Shah of Iran, just not in Iran. And he's sort of stuck with that for decades. I guess the change of circumstances, he can't actually be the ruling Shah in Iran. He's become a Shah in exile instead. But other than that, he hasn't totally changed with the circumstances. I guess he's, you could say maybe he's changed by being more compromising, but he seems compromising anyway. So yeah, just an interesting point. Let's move on that now though to Hassan Piker. Thank you for that, Isaac. So look at Hassan Piker. Yeah, another son of a prominent figure. Let's see. Thank you very much, Isaac. Hassan Piker. American online streamer. Oh, same age as me. American online streamer, influencer, left-wing political commentator. 21st most subscribed channel on the streaming platform Twitch. He's kind of Twitch's de facto political commentator. He's an unabashedly ideological framing. We've spoken about the unabashedly ideological. That to me is beta, and more likely beta ST than beta NF, because there isn't subtlety there. But yes, not an EIE, but a beta. Has regularly spoken about the Gaza war, but advocated for Palestinians and criticized the Israeli government. Born of Turkish parents in New Brunswick, New Jersey, grew up in Istanbul, was raised as a Muslim, immigrated to Turkey. His father, Mehmet. Okay, sorry, he's not the son of yeah, he's not the son of what's it called? Cenk Uygur, but it is his uncle, I think. Yeah. Yeah, Cenk Uygur is a commentator and co-founder of Young Turks. During senior college, he interned for Young Turks, progressive news show. It was Avcel's business department. He asked to host a show when a filler was needed, and he became a host and producer. So taking on responsibility, being front and center, he got asked to be that from the beginning. He is not a background person. Left-wing political analysis, time millennial supporters of presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. Young Turks to focus his career as a Twitch streamer. Shifted his attention from Facebook to Twitch in order to reach a younger audience, because he felt was a preponderance of right-wing commentators on YouTube and lack of leftist representation among streamers. Very, very. That event again says introverted logic is motivating him here. It's about where the ideology is. Play role players Hank Pecker, an ethno-political caricature of a right-wing redneck. That's interesting. So, kind of making fun of the white working class in America. Well, the white rural, not working class, the white rural poor in America. It's interesting you do that because that suggests he's left wing, but he's also not sort of woke or not self-aware in the wokeness, perhaps, that he's making fun of a certain. He's using an ethno-political caricature. You'd think the left would be very much against that. So that's interesting. America deserved 9/11. Goodness, that's something to say. He describes comments as satirical and cites American foreign policy as promoting conditions to make an event like 9/11 possible. He should have been more precise. Like, I mean, saying America deserved 9/11 is a pretty heavy thing to say and very hard to walk back from. But saying it's ironic is a bit okay. Again, so just the extroverted ethics is not the strongest suit for him. He one of the most watched political live streams, hosting news commentary and interviews. He's a very compelling person to watch, clearly. Had to collaborate with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. 125,000 viewers watching his commentary. Goodness. He's banned from Twitch after using an ethnic slur in reference to white people. Goodness. So, yeah, it sounds to me he's okay with transgressing what would be left-wing transgressions as long as it's towards white people. So this suggests he is a deliberately provocative person in that respect. But he said it's not a slur in the same way as other terms. It's less. It should not be taken as seriously, I guess, because it's white. He's also banned for 24 hours after showing an alleged manifesto of Elias Rodriguez, the perpetrator of a 2025 Capitol Jewish Museum shooting. He's banned shortly after for improper handling of terrorist propaganda. Okay, so there's a sense here. He does things which are provocative. He clearly is a very compelling person to be viewed, but there's a certain lack of, you could say, taste in how he goes about doing that, which can backfire for him. Leftist, socialist, Marxist, the introverted logic is very clear here. Like in favor of workplace democracy, universal healthcare, strategic rights, anti-Zionism, yeah, the usual sorts of things one would expect someone on the left. But he's also, it seems to me, a more confrontational leftist in using ethnic slurs, adopting ethnic caricatures, as long as of white people rather than of the supposed oppressed minorities. Right. So his upbringing in Turkey under Erdogan as an influence both his left-wing views and willingness to speak out about them. So there's perhaps more a sort of. It's interesting that his leftism comes from living in under Erdogan, where Erdogan's actually more Islamist, if anything. He's not. You wouldn't necessarily call him a lefty. But it is very sort of anti-Western. So leftism is that sort of very robust, almost quite masculine anti-Westernism, perhaps. It's interesting, rather than sort of more effeminate approach, which one could see in sort of the more sort of soy boy left-wing men in America, you could say, or in England and other places in the West. So that's interesting. Visual question to him during his detainment. He's detained in Chicago after a trip from France. Question views on Donald Trump, Israel, Houthi rebels, Hamas, and his bans from Twitch. Disingenuous his political views and detainment as part of intimidation tactics. His type of lying for likes. Said it was a routine inspection. Any travel could be subjected to. Okay. Reception. Described as the de facto political commentator, unabashedly ideological framing, the video game culture and youth culture covered as positively. So he's provocative, he is strident, he can be vulgar and animated in style of expression, physical appearance. There's notable factors behind this. Does not hold himself to journalistic ethics, according to him. Right. So not if there's anyone on the political right. This sounds very much like Candace Owens, just the left-wing version of Candace Owens. Maybe if we look at Candace Owens before. Candace Owens, or maybe you could say maybe what's his name? Nick Fuentes as well. Sounds more beta extrovert, if anything. But perhaps less skillful in how it's done. I don't know. Was it? So Pike was controversial on both political left and the right. He's criticized by the right for soft peddling the brutality of Hamas. Houthis, yeah, he seemed more allied with these sorts of left wing, or not even Hamas are not left wing, anti-Western mentalities. So he's soft peddling terrorism if it's anti-Western, but by left he's seen as controversial because he has a limousine socialist who's very wealthy, lives in a 2.7 million house. He's actually quite materialistic, despite being a socialist. I think we should see him on YouTube. Let's see some YouTube of Hassan Piker. Ooh. Talking with Mamdani. Well, Mamdani know to be probably a big director.
Know what that means. Okay.
Do you not feel that?
In the Italians of Asia?
What?
What?
Yes.
Sorry?
That's an out there comment.
I've always said that. Italians of Asia.
And Italians of Asia?
Okay.
I don't think there's another way I can go with it, but I think those are the two flips.
What about
That's an interesting perspective.
Go on, sir.
It's going pretty good. This is my first time in Queens, and yeah, I'm excited.
Quite a big
So
statement jacket there.
Mayor win mayoral race, hopefully, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Zoran, you're a busy guy. You're all over the place. You had a rally earlier today.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Went well. It was a rally for a rent freeze with tenants in Sunset Park with incredible.
How does Hassan having a political ideology different from Hayamazaki being a socialist? Hayamazaki's left wing. He's very environmentally focused, but you don't see himself as an overtly political commentator defending, communists, terrorists. He seems to be very much sort of a peacenik who's oriented about environmentalism and hatred of war. It's quite different. They're both left wing, but it's very different approaches, I think.
Right. Also, I do have to mention, you know how like when PBS does when they do a story on Facebook, they'll be like, "We're funded by Facebook." Yeah. As a Turkish person, I have to say,
I'm actually really worried about this interview.
Yeah, as a Turkish person, I have to say, Eric Adams is our guy, okay, and he represents my interests, and I'm actually here to extract concessions from you, similar to what Eric Adams gave.
Now, already you can see a difference between these two people. Mamdani is comparatively more effete and unassertive, whereas you see a lot of masculinity in Hassan. There's a lot of physicality there, in contrast.
There, when I get a hair transplant, there's only one place I'm going.
Okay, perfect.
But I'm paying for it.
Okay,
I'm paying for it.
All right,
but I'm getting it.
Depending on what we can do with the fire code, we can make that an option.
Where we are right now is totally up to code.
I'm joking. It's a joke. Okay, so you're 33 years old.
I'm 33 years old.
Yeah, we're the same age, which is crazy because
same age as me as well. Well, I'm 34 now. This was made 9 months ago. Yeah, they're both the same age as me now.
According to the latest polls, you're in the second place. It's ranked choice, so it's a little bit different. Do you mind explaining that process to our viewers?
Absolutely. So this is the second election for New York City mayor that has ranked choice voting. What that means is that New Yorkers get 5 options, and they put in their options, their first place choice up to their 5th place choice. And if your first place choice is eliminated, then your vote goes to your second place, and so on and so forth, until there's someone who has received more than 50% of New Yorkers' votes. Yeah. And last time around, Eric Adams won the race with about 7,000 votes in a city of 8.5 million people. Yeah. And by the final round, only 40% of New Yorkers' votes were counted because people hadn't filled out their whole ballot. They just kind of gave up. They're just like, I'm voting for one, I'm voting for two, that's enough. I mean, I've had uncles come up to me in the mosque and be like, I'm voting for you and nobody else. I'm like, no, you're not. You're voting for me, you're voting for the rest of your ballot, you're not ranking Andrew Cuomo.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
There's a more sort of playful style of expression of Mondani compared to Hassan. It's very concrete, quite gruff, quite physical.
A little bit for quite a while, as a matter of fact. And I think
Nothing effeminate here.
His like institutional backing was teasing that alongside him, and he has a lot of name recognition. Do you feel like name recognition is one of the major hurdles you have to clear in this race?
Yeah, I also think it's a major opportunity because right now the polls are just sort of
consistently advocate for deregulation and dezoning, and there's some truth to that for sure in terms of how much of a hurdle that is.
So he's catching in a debate situation.
All right, let's do the Ross Douthat debate. The original title for this video was different. I forget what it was, but now they changed it. There's an accompanying New York Times piece with this as well. For those of you who don't know, Ross Douthat, of course, is a right-winger. He's a conservative, but he's supposed to be like, and he's not even like an anti-Trump conservative, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he's like, at least like either Trump agnostic or pro-Trump. I can't remember now. Did you request that they change it? No, I didn't. They do that all the time. They will come out with like a crazy title, and then people will get mad at them, and then they'll change it. They did that with the style section piece. Remember, MAGA body. Oh yeah, the original title was in my how radical is Tom Piker? The Twitch star's flirtation with violence. Meet the online star who likes to play with fire. I knew that it was going to be a contentious conversation, but it was going to be a polite one overall. And I hope that I was able to get some of the positions that I have across in a somewhat hostile, somewhat contentious, but very large platform. Because the New York Times, this YouTube video won't do like crazy numbers or whatever, and that doesn't matter. But the New York Times and interviews like this do reach a lot of power brokers, a lot of people who are in positions of power. So let's take a look. I think conservatives have a really great way of designing a narrative that makes sense to as broad of an audience as possible.
everyone is in the business of crafting media narratives, right?
Yes.
And the
I wish Democrats were a little bit better at it, to be fair.
It's about crafting narratives. It's quite a
has no filter,
beat
or at
thing.
least that's the generous way to
No
describe
filter.
his marathon streaming broadcasts.
Fascists need to go to prison permanently. Sig Heiling has one use. You're a Nazi. If Donald Trump is going somewhere, it is certainly not heaven. Israel is an illegal entity, okay?
Which cover everything from the war in Gaza.
Definitely a very provocative person.
Like this unstoppable force. Like they are not human beings that are making these decisions to bomb schools, mosques, hospitals.
To his fitness regimen.
Are you on creatine? Yes, I love creatine.
Creatine,
Love
fitness,
He's a self-proclaimed Marxist
physicality,
anti-imperialist. We here in
very
the
high protein, big muscles.
labor aristocracy.
who's been hopefully called the left's answer to Joe Rogan, and who's compared himself to Rush Limbaugh. And he keeps getting suspended.
Actually, but that makes sense. That makes sense.
For language that he calls hyperbolic,
Shock
and
jock.
other people call incitement.
Is this person calling for the death of a U.S. senator? Of course not. Hello? If you're watching this, that means I just got banned.
Is he the future of the left? Or is he just another example of how living on the internet drives everyone insane? Hassan Piker, welcome
I
to
think he's
Interesting
got to be
Times.
SLE.
We are living in some interesting times.
It could be LSI, maybe.
It is you, Douthat, who is interviewing.
But I think he's, I think creating an image for himself, it has that hit and miss quality
It's a place for
that I wouldn't expect from an LSI.
the interesting perspectives.
I think his extra ethics is better than what an LSI would have.
No, I didn't hear this intro. It's new.
I think that's what you represent. And we're gonna get
I think the extrovert sensation is a bit more top heavy.
You talk about debates about political violence, but I thought we should start because I know what you do. I'm very tech savvy, obviously. I'm very online. I understand the internet, but there may be some listeners and viewers who don't know what a Twitch streamer is. So I want you to tell me what a Twitch streamer is.
Yeah, Twitch streamers broadly, for the most part, play video games. I'm a little bit unique to the space because I cover politics. I do news and political commentary for the most part. I do lifestyle stuff as well, and I do the regular things that Twitch streamers do on the side, but that's secondary. Twitch is basically a live streaming platform. So for the boomers that read the New York Times, I would say it's like YouTube.
There isn't much of any introverted sensation I can see, though. There's far less of that than what I expect from an LSI.
So when I make podcasts, I come into this beautiful.
There isn't necessarily a sort of calm, chill aspect here. It's more front on.
Cut up and, you know, turned into the product, right? But when you sit down, you go for 7 hours. Like
7 hours, wow.
If you ask my audience now, they'll say half day.
Wow.
And they'll say 7 hours.
These are marathon. This is a guy who doesn't. I don't think an LSI would do this.
Yeah.
So I lowered it to 7.
Okay, and you're doing it
Like,
after.
that suggests the introvert sensation is not his priority, and is not really, and is ignored even when it's not necessary to ignore it.
See you right now with the mic and the background, right? But if someone
Like,
wasn't,
for me, 3 hours is, you know, is a decent chunk of time. 7 hours, I've never done anything like that.
They see what do you?
That'd wear me out.
Normally, at any given moment, if you tune in,
That's you need a lot of energy over 7 hours in the stream.
Or most likely reading an article, criticizing it piece by piece, and also sometimes I offer commentary over media from TV channels.
But he goes between saying very controversial things to then go into very matter-of-fact language.
Talking to people who are talking to you, though, right?
So
the extroverted logic, extroverted ethics, growth transition.
Sometimes hundreds of thousands of concurrent live viewers,
right,
that are in my chat. So we broadly call it chat. They're on the side of the screen. You can see it as well. It's just constantly going up and down like it's the Matrix, right? Because it's just a constant flow.
It is that. Look at me, I've got lots of people.
Maybe it's my ADHD. But,
ADHD. Okay, that would also fit SLE over LSI, really.
Commentary that people consider compelling,
right?
While simultaneously
responding
through,
and you're responding. Somebody writes.
Why is he infantilizing you? No. This part is actually pretty good. So what he's doing here for like the first, I would say like 15 minutes to 20 minutes, is explaining what I do to a media executive that's like 60 years old. Because you have to remember, like,
see how he's animated when he's now going into generalizing terms. Someone who's 60 years old, giving that sort of it's slightly humorous, irreverent, and he's animated. He's gone into his extroverted ethics here. He's comfortable enough to do that.
This is every day. Of course, you know what the fuck I do. But for a person that reads the New York Times and is familiar with Ross Douthat,
you can really see
no clue.
He's an extroverted ethics here now.
Twitch is, they don't know anything.
This isn't matter of fact. This is exaggerated, slightly hyperbolic. Whereas it's matter of fact just there, and far lower energy was doing that.
Is because he's going to then at least give me like an honest shake. Because he's going to obviously criticize me, but he wants to make sure that it is contextually appropriate. Because if he just like came into it and said, "You've said this and you've said that,"
He's breaking down the nature of a conflict and what he's going to do to try and go against him. So it got heated real quick. This isn't about truth necessarily. It's about how this confrontation played out and how he's going to see him off, essentially.
Explaining to people exactly what this is, But he's also belittling a little bit. No, I don't.
Setting narrative around it, which is there's the introverted logic in there. It's narrative setting around how he's going to win this standoff, you could say. It's similar to what Trump does as well.
I think what he wanted to do instead was not to belittle me, but to present me as somewhat of a dangerous figure in American politics, because I do think he considers me to be somewhat of a dangerous figure in American politics. The belittling side of it comes
about how he's going to present me as this, and it's very beta. Think about, okay, he is trying to present me in this way, and this is the narrative he's going to, and I'm going to challenge that narrative.
I understand that
Very
violence
beta.
is a constant presence.
And beta ST, I would say,
Like my advocacy
with some extroverted ethics awareness.
Anyway, let's continue.
That's stupid, Hassan, because of this, and you're like, no, you know, Gremlin user 47.
Exactly.
I'm brilliant. You say something, right?
Well, I wouldn't. I don't know if I would say that.
No,
but sometimes it's complimentary information that's coming in.
Let's get heated.
Okay. So it's not just the transformation of America. I think it's the transformation of global politics.
I want to talk in a minute about sort of how you
make sense to as broad of an audience as possible. Even this is something that conservatives have experienced and have. Okay, I laid it out exactly. I said decentralized forms of can easily just advocate for the harm that is done to millions of Americans.
See, this is what he's doing. He's had this debate. Rather than allow this debate to speak for itself, he's giving his analysis of the debate. And in doing so, he's narrative setting how it went down. And therefore allowing it to be perceived in the way he wants it to be perceived. This is very much extroverted ethics and introverted logic, both in tandem being used here, I would say.
Potentially, without uttering a single word that could be considered remotely violent by America, we look at that as like an advanced version, an intellectual version,
See how much louder he is here, and when he's less comfortable, when he's with someone, he goes very blank effect, matter of fact. Which is something one tends to see in ILEs and SLEs. All right, I think SLE for him. I'm not sure what else he could be really at this point. See some of his quotes quickly before we wrap up. Most controversial quotes, goodness. He just has, if someone has most controversial quotes, you know that they actually say a lot of provocative things. Kill them 8 times a Twitch streamer. Every line, he crosses lines of decency. That is the introverted ethics vulnerable function. He's quite good at extroverted ethics. He's not that strong. He's let down in his hubris by the introverted ethics. This is what they do. They get popular. They get quite big. They then cross lines of decency, and that tarnishes their image. This guy literally lost his eye because of some mujahideen, a brave effing soldier, effed his eye hole with goodness gracious. Goodness gracious me. Yeah, I think he has to be SLE. All right, he's SLE. He has to be SLE. Right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you to Isaac. Thank you to Claudia. Thank you to DJ Granville. Greatly appreciated. And yeah, I wish you all have a lovely week ahead of you. And yeah, see you again next Sunday. So I think next Sunday. I'll let you know if I can't do Sunday. We have to do Wednesday then. We'll have to see. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.